episode. This is the Winners Club Breakfast with Winners. This morning we're talking about startup to exit because it's Friday, which can mean only one thing. We've got the big live stream happening in the studio, and we've got an amazing guest who's coming in as well, the one and only Nick Bradley. He's done 24 acquisitions over the last few years, culminating in £5.4 billion worth of value. He used to be on a lot, didn't he, Nick? And he's ditched us, isn't he?
You're talking to us?
I mean, I'm talking, well, hopefully. Or the brick wall, same sort of level of conversation, frankly, isn't it? Somebody's tired. Somebody's tired.
It's taken him 3 minutes to start.
3 minutes. I nearly didn't make it, to be fair. Yeah, he used to be in a lot, though, didn't he, Nick?
Yeah.
I remember that Nick, I talk about this when he's here, Nick was the host or of the best conversation I ever heard. Because do you remember to start with when the Clubhouse was a bit of an ego fest?
Yeah.
I mean, some days, especially when I'm on, it still is. But there's this one guy who came up and they're like, you've got a question? Like, come up and ask your question. He's like, oh, yeah, I'm going into the space, space aviation, and we got blah, blah, blah. Can anybody help me with this? And he obviously asked it. He's like a real smarmy knobhead. He obviously asked it in a way that he's thinking, oh, no one here is going to qualify. Nick was like, oh, yeah, we actually did 17 satellite launches. And I was like, what? You can talk about space. So, yeah, we've got, Nick Bradley is coming up on the show later on this morning, which is going to be fantastic. Yeah, he's a startup expert. And before he gets here, the conversation is all going to be around startup to exit. That's going to be the general conversation. Here's a question then, because I had this debate a lot yesterday with a client that I was working with. I'm going to ask you, Paul Abercrombie. Do you need to know your exit when you start a business? And I'm that serious. I'm tapping my finger on the table. Do you need to know your exit when you start a business?
Only when you've not accepted somebody's offer and you're bitter and twisted about it, and you start another business knowing that you want to get that offer again and exit. Yes. So no, when you probably most likely people don't think about that, but I think you definitely should.
Have you thought about the exit for us? What's the exit? How does it end with me, you and Shipman?
Me flying off to the sunset, leaving you two behind. And still doing
You could still do that. You could still go. Lovely. Paul, he's left us. He's left us.
No, I think you need to, because everything, like, without sounding boring and repeating the same record every
go on,
day,
you might as well.
The same.
Why change the
all
habit?
of the systems, the processes, the whole idea behind all of that is being able to exit yourself from the business, so that when you have an asset that can be sold. People don't look at a business like that. They often look at a business like it's providing them with an income and giving them a great life and allowing them to go on holiday and buy the cars and, do all the nice stuff.
That's me.
As opposed to, if you look at it like a property transaction, it's easy to sell a property because it's unencumbered, isn't it? It's an asset that can be moved on to somebody else. If you structure your business in that way, it's very easy to get the exit that you want. At some point when it becomes very messy and the business is encumbered by you as the director, and you're intertwined in everything that goes on, you are the bottleneck, as Nick will tell you when he comes in, I'm sure. It's very difficult to get an exit arranged like that. So everything I do now is worked on, not needing me to be centrally involved, not because I want an easy life, yes, but secondly, because if you want that exit at some point, people are buying the systems and the processes that you've developed. Not sometimes they buy you as the person, sometimes they do, but mostly they're buying a working, well-oiled machine of a business.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple of weeks because I don't know if you know this, I've got a podcast agency. Paul loves it. I do a subliminal plug. Anyone need a podcast? But yeah, actually, I'm much too integral to that business.
Yeah, but because the business is new, though, isn't it? Like in terms of
what's the business?
Age.
Oh, it's just a podcast agency. Check out ultimatepodcastgroup.com. Cheers, Ash. But yeah, okay. So that's interesting. So it's a new business, but if because it's like a year old, but should I'm just going to sit back and get some coaching here, guys. Stand back. Abercrombie is going to systemize me here, which sounds a bit seedy. But should I, at which point in the business's infancy do you need that like exit plan? Because I haven't got one because I'm too integral to it.
You need to do everything yourself first. So like okay,
that's fine. I'm there.
Like with what we're doing, you've seen me do stuff. Like I'll physically get involved, and
I mean you staple gun stuff. You got very physically involved.
But you have to do it yourself first to be able to teach somebody else and document it and systemize it. So exactly what you're doing is doing it all yourself. You have to be aware enough to realize that when the point is right to find somebody else to do it for you. And get more time back. And that usually comes when you're running around like a blue ass fly and not knowing what day of the week it is. Very unorganized. At that point, you probably think to yourself, right, we should get somebody else in to do.
So now that I've got a couple of starters, now the time I should be taking a bit of that time back and going, right, okay, now let's have a little bit of thinking time.
Ask Nick. Nick might want to buy a podcast agency.
Hey, Nick, if you're listening already, bring your checkbook, mate. It's going to be an expensive morning for you, my friend. Right.
It's like a market, isn't it? You can buy a workspace company. We'll even sell him Ashley Shipman.
I will chuck Ashley into any deal that we do this morning.
It could be like they do at the football clubs. You know, we'll give you 20 million and we'll chuck in Ashley.
We're chucking Ashley, yeah. Unless you don't want him, in which case we'll take him with us if we have to. Okay, interesting. Do you know your exit from your businesses, Ashley Shipman?
He knows where the fire exit is. He goes out there to have a cigarette every morning.
No, it's actually something though that I think in Clubhouse, being around Paul, the way he does things has really opened my eyes up. There's
not many benefits to hanging out with Paul, but that is one of them.
If you work for somebody, you have an end point, you have a retirement, right? Most people live their lives to get to retirement.
Yeah.
That's like the journey that people go on.
Yeah.
This mystical retirement that most people never reach. But that is the exit. But when you go into your own business, you just will work doing the same thing for many years. And Nick will tell you again, probably there's so many people like legacy owners of businesses that get to a certain age and haven't thought about, you know, who takes over, where it goes, the legacy of that business. And somebody like Nick comes in and buys it for £1.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. Good for Nick, bad for the business owner.
I know people that have retired and their business still operates and gives them an income. What's your views on that? Like, so
living the dream.
Or would you sell up for the bigger paycheck, or would you want the residual, or is it just depending on where the business is at?
I think it depends. Like you mentioned about a friend of yours, like if you've had a decent offer for a business, I would say to anybody, take it.
Yeah.
Like definitely take it. Because you can always do a second business, can't you? And a third business and a fourth business.
Yeah, well, I'm part of a travel business that got an offer in January just before COVID hit. And we refused it, and then COVID hit.
I had a 9.
Oh, really? Yeah, what, for your business?
Yeah, the travel business I'm part of. Bang.
Someone offered in January?
Oh, we refused because it was it ticked over nicely.
Yeah.
2 months later, COVID hit. The business is in a real bad way.
Yeah. I told you before, but I had a nine-figure valuation placed on my business, and I had an offer, and I turned it down. Don't regret that, honest.
You should see his teeth quoting together.
Yeah,
I don't
regret it.
I was arrogant. My ego was there. I was arrogant. I was like, no, you know, I was asking myself, what am I going to do next? All that sort of stuff. The reality is, you know, somebody said it in the room the other day. Most people, until they reach some element of success, have 16 businesses. I can't remember who said that.
Right?
Yeah, somebody said it in the room the other morning.
And Ashley, so
most
I've only
people until they get the success they want, it's an average of 16 businesses.
So you've had 12. I've only had a couple. So Ashley, what have you? So Ashley had about 50. So actually, yeah, we average out in this room. Don't we? The average is stated still exists. Yeah, I had a really interesting day yesterday. So I was with a client, and he's the ex-CEO of Thomas Cook. And he was talking about the acquisitions that he did, because he had his first independent business got bought by, you're too young for this, Going Places. Do you remember Going Places and Poly?
Yeah, there was a day, Ashley, where you'd have to go into a shop to book a holiday. Like there wasn't the internet
before.
Do you remember a day before the internet?
No, he said, "Are you a Gen Zer?"
I don't know what that is, but I
you used to get a book, like a proper brochure, and you'd have to pick the hotel.
That's right, yeah.
Brochure. There was teletext. Do you remember teletext holidays? Teletext.
Yes, my dad used to always get.
My mum used to look at that, but I was at the age where I used to take the phone line out to go on MSN or whatever it was, or whatever. Then,
of course you were. Dial-up router.
That's the stage that I went through.
Okay.
So, what was happening through my period of going on the internet, it was just getting better and better and better. So, I never knew the struggle.
The struggle is real. The struggle of booking a holiday was real. But he was saying he had an independent business, and then that got bought out by Going Places because they wanted him to run the business, and then he went back into, he sold up, made his money, had to leave the country for tax purposes, basically lived in LA for a bit, and then got a call to come and run another business, and he only came back to run that business for the next 3 years because he knew on day one who he was going to sell that to. He was preparing that business for sale, and he would not sell it to anybody else apart from the company that he had in mind for it from day one. And I was like, that's really interesting, actually. And he was like, the only business I never had an exit for was the first one, because I just didn't know what I didn't know at 19.
I'm going to broker the sale of your podcast agency this morning.
Are you?
Yeah.
Nick.
If he's listening.
Abercrombie's involved now. Bring 2 checkbooks because it's been a doubly expensive morning for you now. And Ashley is my head of sales acquisitions. So bring your A game, pal. If you're in the car on the A13 now, I think twice about coming in here this morning because we are razor sharp. Right then, modern speakers, popcorn Sully, flash your mic. I'm really intrigued by this now. Right, so starting up to exit, do you have to start with the end in mind? Flash your mic if you have an opinion on this that you would like to share. Do you have to know your exit when you get started? Can you just get up and running? At which stage do you need to sort of start considering it? Oh, I hope she would flash. Alison Edgar, MB here. I bet she's got a plethora of opinions on this one. Go on, Alison.
I'm watching you on the screen as well on Facebook. Looking good, guys. So I think it's interesting because we talk a lot in this room about personal brand, don't we? We talk about company brand versus personal brand. So for me, I think that was something that I have got a strong personal brand, and I don't ever want to retire. So I didn't start the business till I was 46. And yesterday I was with this wee lady who's 80, amazing woman, and she's already spent 30 grand, right? Getting people to help her write this book. So she's 30 grand down on getting somebody to help her with her book. We did one session. I said, look, just you're 80 years old, give me 100 quid and we'll get this book sorted. And she's now got a plan for her book, and she's got a target for her book. So can you ever exit? She's never exiting. She's 80. She's, that's what I want to be doing when I grow up. But I've also got Sales Coaching Solutions, which is the company brand, and where I started the business. And part of the reason that I've split the 2 brands is that the methodology in the first book, Secrets of Successful Sales, that could be delivered by anyone because it's all tight on the copyright. It's all quite easy now to deliver because it's all documented. So that could be delivered by anyone and that could be exited. But again, I think that's the difference between your company brand and your personal brand, and why the marketing of both of them is so important, which we talk about regularly in this room. So yes, I don't ever want to exit until they take me away in the little coffin. That's when I'm going to exit my personal brand. I'm Alison Edgar, MBE.
Do you know what, Alison? You raise a very...
I like to get in there too.
That's fine. Just jump in.
Who's that? Who's that speaking?
I'm sorry. I'm Denot. My bad. I just wasn't flashing my mic at the time, and sorry.
Well, do not do it again. Hey, come on now. Go on then, do not. As you're here, we might as well crack on. Go on, mate. What's your take on it? What have you got to add to the conversation?
Well, I'm with Alison. The exit is when I close my eyes, because it's your personal brand. It's everything about you. You become a walking entity. You focus so much of your time, your expendable energy, not just, time, just expendable energy to master your craft. And it's like the whole purpose of spending so much time and energy at mastering your craft is to do what makes you happy ultimately. And you want to be happy for the rest of your life, right? So if it's really like a startup or your personal brand, it's something that never cease to exist. For instance, Oprah Winfrey, she's a walking personal brand, and even when she's gone, that brand is still going to be here, leaving its impression. So respectfully, the exit is when you die. So I'm with Alison.
Awesome. Cheers, Donat.
Do you know, that's a very good point. We was having a conversation about somebody that we know who's built a huge personal brand and is so entrenched in the business. They've got quite a big operation and business, turning over millions of pounds a year, and they are like the center.
They are the business.
They are the business. They've got 100, nearly 100 staff in the team, but they are the business. It's really difficult to exit that business or to leave. And it's like, are you going to be doing, if you've got a personal brand, are you really going to be doing Instagram lives and Facebook lives when you're 75?
Alison Edgar will. I'm confident she will.
More to do. Oh my God, I'll be doing it even more then, because I won't need to worry about what else is going on.
I guess that's why if you've got the personal brand, you then need, like Alison said, she's got a sales company behind it. You've got a system, develop a system. The system has intrinsic value, doesn't it? And therefore you can sell the system. Interesting debate about the whole personal brand, because personal brand is you, isn't it? So how do you exit you? You can't. But do you want to be doing what you do now for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I suppose you have to then transition your personal brand to being the person who runs these businesses. You are not the business. You're the person who operates.
Say your personal brand as the person that we know, that we was having a conversation about. I'm really trying.
Don't say his or her name.
If you are the personal brand and you have a team of people that operate that business for you, but you have to pay their salaries, every single day when you wake up that you've got to sell every single year X amount of whatever it is you're selling,
just to keep the lights
to keep the lights turned on. Yeah, and that is a really uncomfortable place to be. Trust me, I've been there. It's okay when you're the personal brand and you're earning enough to keep you in a nice lifestyle, and you've got a lifestyle business, that's cool. But when you've got a big team of people behind you, and as it grows, you build up a team of people, and you've got to wake up every single morning and know you've got to earn £10 million a year, otherwise you're making staff redundant.
Yeah,
that's a difficult place to be. And if you are essential to that, and you've got to wake up every single day and do a Facebook Live, do a podcast, or do an Instagram Live every single day to keep that sustained, I don't know if that's what I would want to do for the rest of my life.
I suppose it goes back to the point of how important it is to start out to a certain extent understanding what the exit is, because I could see that quite easily you could accidentally become the key man or key woman within that business, especially like say when you're punting your personal brand. It's like with I can't even say now, with the agency. I'm not trying to punt my services all the time. I just happen to be great at podcasts. Sorry guys, come and check out the website. But people, realistically, I know full well, I'm trying to grow the brand of that business. No one cares. No one even knows what the company's called until they get an invoice. They've come to work with me. But then you have to, that sounded well arrogant in there. They are here for me. But realistically, that is true. So you have to almost be mindful of that and know that, right, well, you're going to build your personal brand, which is going to accelerate a lot quicker and get a lot more attention. But then you have to build that company brand at the same time. So like you say, there is something that isn't linked to you, because that architect's practice, Paul's Architects wouldn't have been a sellable asset, would it? Also, terrible name for an architect's firm. But what you'd built, the system and processes, that's then an actual.
Do you know what? A great example, only because I'm listening to their book again. I listen to his books every couple of months. I re-listen to them on Audible because I think they're fantastic. But Gino Wickman, who's got Rocket Fuel and Traction. Yeah. So have you ever read Rocket Fuel?
No.
Oh, fantastic. Don't read it. I can just tell you what's in it. But yeah, Rocket Fuel and Traction, fantastic books for anyone that's like systemizing or building out a business. It's what I used basically when I didn't have a clue what I was doing. That's like what's in Rocket Fuel. It talks about the visionary and the implementer and all of that stuff. But so they've got the books, and obviously Gino Wickman and his partner are the key people in the brand, but they've got what they call the EOS, the Entrepreneur's Operating System, which is a system and a process in the background. And they've got global trainers all over the world that go and implement this stuff in people's businesses. So they've got, obviously there's their personal brand, but they've built one hell of a monster in a system and a process of a business that has an asset value that can be sold, that somebody will buy. So their legacy exit is obviously, it would be to sell that part.
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So the debate is on a slightly different area, isn't it? David, have you got something to add? You keep unmiking, my friend.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the very amazing Alison, who is part of the Winners Club, has got an amazing book as well called Smash It, which I'm just.
She's never told us that before, David.
Oh, no, but I'm actually. Yeah, but I'm picking it up because I'm dyslexic, as you know, and I've got ADHD, and I love reading books, and I've picked up other people's books. But her app, which accompanies the Smash It book, has helped me loads get more clarity on where I'm going with goal setting and everything else. Because her first one, which was sales, this one's going in depth into the personal development side. So I just wanted to recommend it because I've read it and it's really good. So anybody that wants that book, make sure you get Smash It, which is done by the beautiful, amazing Alison, because it's helped me a lot. So yeah, I just want to add that while you're on the adding of the books there, Paul.
And make sure you use the discount code David so he makes sure he gets his affiliate commission.
No affiliate commission, because otherwise, if it was, I'd be bigging it up every time I could see.
Yeah. Good on you, mate.
Can I ask Alison a question for selfish reasons? Alison, are you a Celtic or a Rangers fan? Or neither?
You're not allowed to ask that.
Oh.
That's like, because there's all the connotations around religion and all that stuff. So I'm a Clydebank supporter. Clydebank is famous for wet, wet, wet. And of course, it's amazing football team.
Wet, as in the 90s band.
No.
Yeah.
Wet, as in wishing I was lucky and all that malarkey. They went to Clydebank High. That's Singer Sewing Machines, QE2, wet, Duncan Bannatyne, and of course, Alison Edgar, MVP. Highlights of Clydebank.
Completely irrelevant to the conversation, I know.
Do you feel better about it now, though? Do you feel like you got a bit more knowledge on Alison?
I've always wondered.
Well, there you go. Now you know.
And I've actually got a question though. This is more directed to Paul. How would I exit my business if I'm just only entrepreneur? What would I need to build in order to then sell the business? Because I'm building a magic school, but again, it's more of like magic's a little bit of like, you need to learn the skill. So how would you, Paul, if you were me, go about exiting my business or creating something so then it could be an asset to sell on to somebody else who wants to go into that? That's my question directed to Paul, with James saying that he's the best at automation and stuff.
With I'll tell you how you exit that business with a gigantic puff of smoke.
I walked into that one.
You did. Sorry, mate.
I'm surprised he's not got a sound effect to give to you or something.
If only I had.
Oh, there we go.
It doesn't work, does it?
No. Do you know, that's a good question. That's
I know.
Yeah, do you know what? You're along the right lines. Initially, without putting too much thought into it, David, it would be a magic school, a system, or a process. Basically intellectual property. Like people buy the intellectual property, as I'm sure Nick, who's just arrived in the studio, by the way, will tell you. But for you, it would be developing some sort of IP that has a value that somebody could buy. So that would be a book, that would be a system, a process, a magic school, basically something that's not intrinsically linked to you standing on the stage performing, basically.
You need to make the modern day Paul Daniels magic set. That's what you need to do. Do you remember Paul Daniels' magic set when you were a kid?
Yeah,
that's what got me in. That's what got me into magic.
Yeah, it's what got a lot of people into magic, wasn't it?
My daughter's got one at the moment that she got from one of the big branded toy shops or something. I'm saying like we're on radio that we can't mention the name. I think it was Smith's Toy Store or something like that. It's got a rising wand. David would probably know this. So it's got like a little bit at the bottom, and she puts it in her hand, and as she releases the grip on her hand, the wand rises up in her hand.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
She thinks she's the best magician in the world.
But don't ruin the illusion. Yeah, interesting. All right, cool. Very excited because the one and only Nick Brad. Oh, you got an Australian flag next to your name now. You look even more international and jet set now.
I know. I don't know how that happened. I think it was like they must have like trolled my profile. They said proud Australian or something like that.
So Nick is in the studio. We're going to kick off with an official deep dive into you about 7 o'clock-ish. So we're just going to continue to warm up the conversation for the next few minutes. We're talking this morning about start up to exit. How important, when the conversation's gone in a bit of a varied direction. We were talking to start with this morning about how important is it to know your exit plan when you get started, and then there's sort of the debate of, how do you build a personal brand and a business brand so that the two are not too intrinsically aligned and there's a sellable asset value. Well, hopefully we'll get to the bottom of that.
And somewhere in the middle, we're going to sell you James's podcast agency.
That's fantastic.
And we're giving you Ashley Shipman for free in the deal.
For free, yeah.
There we go. That's my lucky charm or something.
He is the size of a leprechaun.
I got his keyring.
Yeah, exactly that. Dr. Nashita was flashing.
I was. Good morning, winners. Thank you. Thanks for letting me speak on this. Two examples briefly. One is my own experience. We, with some friends, had a villa rental business back in the day when the internet was booming. we actually were one of the first video rental businesses where you could actually video your own property and put it on a website and market it. And when we went into that business as entrepreneurs, we didn't have an exit strategy. We were so in love with the idea of what we were doing. We thought this was going to be a great business. We had a lot of, not me, but several of the other people involved had a lot of experience with growing businesses and scaling businesses. So we were on a winner. 4 years later, we sold the business and took our cash and ran. And the reason for that was we didn't anticipate what would be our exit strategies for each of the partners who were involved, because we were so committed in the beginning. And the lesson from that really was it's a good idea to have a conversation where you're one of the founders with yourself or with your partners about, what would it take for us to stay and what would it take for us to go. And now that I'm further down the line running my own business, but now advising other scale-ups and startups on how to scale their businesses, I've learned from my own work in negotiation that it's a good idea at least to have a conversation and jot down somewhere, whether it's formally or informally, what is the alternative to continuing this business. There's lots of reasons why we might pull out of a business. It can be for health reasons, our own health. It could be somebody else's health or commitment. It could be massive life-changing experiences, positive or otherwise. So I do recommend that, although you don't need to know exactly what you're going to exit on or the reason you're going to exit for, that you think about what that exit strategy could look like so that you don't find yourself caught off guard. The other second part of it is that when you're thinking about, do I need to have an exit plan? It depends on the business. If you're a solopreneur like me, then love what you were just sharing with David and I missed who was speaking earlier, Alison, about, well, it's okay. You can keep going with your own brand as long as people are interested in you until, you leave this planet. But if you can create a scalable business behind you, like the book, like the school, like training programs, I'm using the licensing method, then it has a life beyond you and you can choose then to exit just for whatever reason. But if you have, and this is the key, if you have other people dependent on you, if your business carries some kind of risk to others beyond yourself, then I think it's sensible as a minimum to have an exit strategy because you're protecting other people's interests and you need to know what would have to happen for me not to be here and therefore risk potentially other people's livelihoods and jobs and the security of this business. Exit doesn't always have to be negative, by the way. Exit can be for the, like mergers and acquisitions and sellouts. You can have exits for very good reasons, but it's a good idea, I think, is the answer to make sure that you have thought that through and put it down somewhere. I'm Dr. Nash, I'm done speaking.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much. An exit doesn't have to be negative. Oh, I hadn't even thought that it would be negative. Potentially. I hope it's not negative when Nick buys my podcast agency later. That'd be a letdown,
no, it depends on the price, mate. It really doesn't it?
Oh God, he's already in the go. Ashley, deal with it. Ashley, deal with it. I can't look him in the eye. I've got my sales dog on the case. Paul's going to be leading the negotiations, and Ashley's going to take you outside for a quiet word about.
That's all right. We've got a barrier between us. It's all right. We don't have to jump across. With
subconscious and literal.
You must have done loads of these in a day, but do you remember the type of negotiations? Obviously, COVID doesn't. You've got 2 meeting rooms, and then like a middle meeting room in between. You got parties in one room, parties in another, and then you have
that was all theatre though.
A neutral place to go between the rooms.
Is that an actual thing?
Yeah, that's happened.
Really?
Yeah, it does. It was all made. The whole thing's made up. It's like the psychology of the negotiation. So you go into that room over there, and then no one really does anything. You just kind of sit around and twiddle your thumbs a bit, like just making someone sweat in the other room, and then you go, "Oh, we've had a conversation." Kind of works like that.
Is that part of your tactic? Ash, if you were going to use that as a tactic, we can't use that now on him later for the negotiation for the agency.
Don't worry, I'm going to look up my sleeve now.
Yeah. he's Googling away here.
Just make sure we lock the door first.
Yeah. Make it really uncomfortable for everybody.
We think he sits there Googling intelligent stuff, but he's probably Googling spray tan or
eyelashes, makeup.
Like
I'll let you know. I'll give him a nudge if he is and say, listen, mate, get with the program here.
Right, we're going to go into interview mode in a minute because we've got the one and only Nick Bradley who's in the building, but let's have one more share from the stage before we do. So mods and speakers, popcorn style, flash your mics if you've got something that you'd love to share. We're talking this morning all about startup to exit, and one of the conversations, or a couple of the conversations have been around, do you have to start with the end in mind? Do you have to know what you're doing with regards to your business before you get started in order to exit? Anna, we'll come to you.
Yes, hi, good morning. Ashley, Paul, James, and Nick. Great to see you guys and everyone on stage and in the audience. So my perspective is based on just my work over the past 20 years teaching entrepreneurship and having brought about 1,300 business plans, like rigorously written with financials, 5 P's of marketing, Porter's 5 Forces, the whole shebang, you could say, in front of actual venture capitalists and angel investors. It is critical, first of all, to have a business plan. The business plan gives you a roadmap and an opportunity with the founders, co-founders, or one founder to really discuss whether the intention and exit strategy doesn't have to be exit per se. It could be exit or it could be a growth strategy. So look at Facebook, for example. They had, its founder Zuckerberg had no intention of selling his company. So you could plan from the beginning to have a growth strategy or an exit strategy. And of course, you can reserve the right to change your mind somewhere in between. Definitely, you need to plan out from the beginning, create systems in place, and focus on building your team, the most talented team that you can find, and being laser focused from the beginning on your intention and your business strategy and how you're spending your time. And this is advice from a woman, Patty DeDominic, who helped 4 companies go from mere, like for example, lynda.com, from 13 million to 1.2 billion at the time of its sale to LinkedIn, and many other companies that she took to billions of dollars. So I would personally look at either both. And you don't have to, I agree with Allison in the sense that you don't want to sell out on your brand. So you could keep your brand and create other businesses, but for that one particular business or many businesses, you can have different strategies, and your brand can help you definitely restart again. And I agree with what you were saying, Paul. How do you institutionalize your story, for example, is one way to go in terms of like if your company is based on your story, so you can institutionalize your story and sell the company. Thank you. I'm Anne and I'm complete.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much. Lovely share. We are going to have a quick reset and then we are going to be back with our special guest, the one and only Nick Bradley is in the studio.
You are listening to Breakfast with Winners, exclusive content direct from the Winners Club. If you are enjoying the conversation, click on the green Monopoly house at the top of the screen right now and join the thousands of winners already in our community. For more information about the Winners Club, head to thewinnersclub.club. Now back to the show.
LA indeed. Sorry, we're having some little lulls in the studio. It has just gone 7 o'clock. Let's have a quick reset. This is Breakfast with Winners, as the fancy voiceover just told you. If you are not yet, by the way, my friends, if you're not yet following the Winners Club, if you're in this room, then you are missing out. If you haven't yet clicked onto the greenhouse at the top of the room right now, I can see. Have a quick look.
So we just inform the couple hundred people about the debate we were just having in the studio.
Go on.
Our guest, Nick, asked, who created the studio? It's great. To which James and Ashley attempted to try and take the credit.
No, Ashley, no, we did, yeah. Yeah, we did do that. We had very little involvement. Every hole, every staple gun mark, every bead of sweat.
It doesn't look makeshift, though. It kind of looks professional. So
we actually feel like we're on.
I think, Paul, you did it, mate.
We feel like we're on Radio 1 when we come in here in the morning. It really ticks our ego box for about 3 hours. And then
me and James,
when we walk out the fire exit, we realise we're in Ilford.
Yeah, last week, the ego thing was bad, though, wasn't it? Because Morella came in from Global Woman magazine. She's like, I want to put you on the front cover of our magazine. I was like, oh, this is going to be a problem here. My ego's going to flare right up. And then she sort of looked us deep in the eyes, didn't she? She went, I don't think you know the difference you're making. I was like, this is going to be a problem.
I've got to say, I felt very special coming in here today. Like I left about middle of the night, trekking through, the East Midlands to get here until I reached the roundabout around the corner where the homeless guy came and knocked on the side of the car window. And I had to give him a croissant from my Starbucks bag because I felt like, and then I realised I was in Ilford.
Yeah.
First world problems.
Yeah, it was.
Nick was on the phone saying, I was like, where were you? He went, just feeding the homeless at the lights. You know where that is? And I went, yeah. I know exactly where you are.
Did you really come in that far?
You're nearby.
I know. I come down from Peterborough, so it wasn't
really?
that long.
Okay.
It took about an hour and a half to get here. But yeah, it was pretty straightforward down the M11.
No, what was we?
We're talking about the studio setup.
No, you should. If you was here last week, there was a photo shoot, right, with these two. Brilliant. Honestly, this was a priceless moment. So Morella, she showed us. She's got a magazine, and we were asked to be on the front cover. Which
I think that's awesome, guys.
She showed us an example of a magazine cover. She was like, right, okay, this is what we want you to. This is what we want you to do. What we want you to pose. So the example that she brought up was a cover of Vanity Fair, right? And the three people on the front cover was Daniel Craig, George Clooney, and Matt Damon. Right,
perfect.
Obviously,
I can see right. I can see right.
So there was about an hour of us trying to recreate their pose. Honestly,
and we just ended up looking like an aged boy band.
It was priceless. It was priceless.
But there's that brand photo that you guys did recently where it kind of looks like you're all on the couch together.
Yeah,
that sort of boy band. That was great. I thought cool.
Yeah, that
was a bit more casual. This was proper, like
this was
pout your lips pose.
Yeah,
style. They bought someone to organise the photo shoot and then someone to take the photos and then lighting and everything.
Did you have makeup as well, James?
No, but I was. If I'd have known in advance how bad the bags and was,
we told Ashley it's okay. There's an invention called Photoshop, so it's all right.
Well, the thing is, James, me and James kept mucking up the photos. James was too stiff. I was just, and Paul was just a pure natural at posing.
He started telling us about these times we'd been in like BBC Good Home magazine and stuff, didn't he? Do you remember? He was giving it loads.
Oh, perfect. This is
turns out Ashley Shipman can't smile. Like you put a camera in front of him, he actually can't smile. Like it's an affliction. Like it's look at that. He looks like a psychopath.
It is quite funny. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can't.
Basically, for everyone listening, his eyes have gone really wide. His mouth's kind of shaking.
I sat in the mirror. I was going.
No, he was one of those guys. Like, take the photo, go and look behind the camera at the
Ash,
screen.
look at that camera there. That camera there. So if you that's what Ash's face looks like. If you're not watching the live stream, by the way, you can. If you click onto go to thewinnersclub.club, and on the landing page you can see there's a live stream button, and Ashley Shipman is currently smiling at a camera. So you can see.
I think it's very endearing, mate. I think you look great.
It was.
I think that she is in business. Just my face has naturally lost its smile.
Life has withered his smile away.
It was one of the funniest moments I've witnessed doing that photo shoot.
And this is just the beginning, guys. You know what's going to happen when you take Broadway and Manhattan and wherever.
No, I don't think we're going to get that far, frankly. Based on last week, I don't think we'll get that far.
Well, in the end, it was just like there was no. Me and James just ruined either side of the picture, so it was just like. He had to lean on Paul's shoulder. Paul had to cuddle me, and we was all trying to look like friends.
if we don't ever hear from Morella ever again, we know she's not put us on the magazine.
No, that happens, by the way. Yeah, you got to get in Forbes magazine all of a sudden, like, when did that actually get published? Oh, it didn't. Oh, okay.
Yeah, got something to a quiet Newsweek. In the end, I think we just said to Morella, we respect the art direction, but you can't polish a turd, but you can sprinkle it in glitter. So just do that. Just do a bit of that.
Who was Daniel Craig and who was George Clooney?
So who's the shortest one? You must be Daniel Craig. Paul, who's who looks you're Clooney, because Clooney looks the most miserable. I was Matt Damon because no one's really sure like what Matt Damon's at. Is he a talent or is he not? We're not really sure.
He's kind of the short straw.
I was that one, and Ash was Daniel Craig. Pre coming out of the sea. Right, awesome stuff.
Well, what was worse, just the last thing on that, I was wearing flip-flops because I got broken toe. So
it's amazing from the waist up.
So we turned up and Morella said to James, "Are you going to change for the photo shoot?"
So anyone listening, who wants to do personal brand makeovers,
I mean, best shirt on as well.
She sat down where you are. She went, "You are going to change for the photo shoot." Yes,
he had one shirt.
How dare you? Yeah, these two turn up like Paul turned up in the back of his car was full. It was like the back of like a top man or something, like he'd rolled the back of a truck.
Yeah.
But when somebody says you bring some change of clothes, that doesn't just mean bring one shirt.
Or some flip-flops. That's it. But
that was fair.
I reckon that's your new style, mate. That's like sort of California cool.
So now this magazine cover is going to be cropped at the bottom to take out the Havanas and the bandage of his toe.
Or she'll have to superimpose some longer legs on him. If Ashley Shipman looks really tall in those photos, we know why. It's got the legs of a giraffe.
It's going to be a Photoshop challenge. There we go. It could be done.
Definitely be a challenge. Right, Nick. Let's get to now. We've dragged you down from the Midlands to have a conversation. We've talked about Ashley Shipman's footwear for the last 10 minutes. Let's get into something actually useful. So tell us, because you you were on Clubhouse like early days. You were banging 18 hours a day like the rest of us in January.
God.
And then I don't know what happened. You got like real life caught up with
It's
you.
called the black hole of Clubhouse, I think.
Yeah. So you jumped onto the app because you got a big following like really quick. Like you were one of the early like 20, 30K influencers, weren't you? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I would tell you what happened, right? So I joined on the 5th of January, right? So I just come out of kind of, Christmas lockdown, New Year's lockdown. I thought, what the hell's going to happen this year? And I went into Clubhouse, got invited by someone and went into a room and thought, I'll just try and, host something first off. And the first person who turns up to the room, literally, is this guy, Ashley. Like, so I'm there by myself, and then this dude turns up, right?
First to the party. He's a bit like that. You can't get rid of him.
It was a bit like that. And then all of a sudden, all of Ashley's cronies turned up, right? So there's a little crew of like 12 of us. And that was like, I'm thinking, this is quite fun, right? This is what Clubhouse is about. And then you had people like, Spectacular Smith with these like, 2,100 people rooms, then my room of 12.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just sort of thought, because I was doing the podcasting stuff anyway, and I can't shut up when I get going, as you'll find out. I thought this is going to be fun, right? Just to play around with it and see what the potential is. And then a few other people started to join. People I know like Rob Moore, and they were sort of building up rooms. And I thought, let's just give this a go for a while. And started to collaborate with various people. People like Mario Nafal got involved, and then we were running a room called the Round Table. And that started to get some pretty big numbers coming to it. Back in the day, it feels like back in the day ago, we were getting rooms of, 1,500, 2,000 and just kind of having a lot of fun, similar to this sort of stuff. And I think my following went up from that because we were doing, we had a very clear sort of strategy behind what we were trying to do. So we were running rooms around business, running rooms around just having fun, interviewing different guests that were coming in. And of course, back then you had a lot more sort of high profile people on the app who would just kind of join.
That's right, yeah.
And they just like, Jay Shetty would just pop into your room. Right? And you'd be
right, yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki. Oh, hi, Robert. How are you? And one of my personal favorite memories, a guy called Jesse Itzler.
Yes.
And he came in and he's married to Sarah Blakely, who's the billionaire owner of Spanx. And I was in a room with him and there's like 5 of us. And I was like, oh, hi, Jesse. And I said to him, because one of my sort of goals in the future is to buy a sports team. I want to buy the Boston Celtics. And he owns the Atlanta Hawks. And I said to him, Jesse, how do you do this? How do you buy a sports team? And he kind of got right into it. And there was like a 15-minute conversation about how do you save up the money to buy a professional sports team? Brilliant. So all of those sort of things happened. And yeah, it was great. Great fun in the beginning. Still great fun. Just it's changed a bit, I think, since then.
So yeah, I was okay. Interesting. I used to love those heady days. Do you remember when Paris Hilton jumped in? Tyrese, the R&B singer, used to jump in a lot, didn't he? Grant Cardone would come in your room. John Lee Dumas. That's how we ended up getting him in for an interview, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was crazy.
So it was kind of cool. And I think for me also, like, these were people that I wanted to have on my show, on my podcast. And I'm thinking this is a great way to first meet them through these rooms. 100%. And then obviously the other thing that was people probably don't appreciate as much, it's the collaborations that happened on the stage, with the moderators and the speakers, like what we're doing here, which makes a massive difference. And if I think back for the last 6 months, where's the biggest value been for me personally? It's been those networks and different collaborations that have happened. I mean, I've got business partnerships that have come off the back of it, like you guys are doing, friendships. I think in almost every state in America, I've got somewhere to stay, which is interesting, because I've got people I've met on the app who've said, listen, when you're over, come and stay with us and that sort of thing. So that's been the real value for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe you can give me some help on how to do that, because I think I've got the raw end of the deal so far.
Yeah, when you think about the collaborations,
partners and collaborations,
he can go anywhere in America. What can you do?
Well,
you can go down to Ashley's gaff.
I could go to where is it, Chislehurst?
You can come down to Chislehurst anytime.
Southend.
Wasn't Warren Buffett who said that smart people say yes a lot, but really, really smart people say no more? So you just got to pick your friends wisely. Yeah.
Come on, Paul, make a studio. Paul, make a studio. Paul, we need a bigger room. Paul, we need a desk.
We need systems and operations all done, automation done.
Paul, we need these poles on this desk that cost 250 quid a pop for these screens that Ashley's not even allowed to look at. Come on, Paul, make a studio. Yeah, you have got the raw end of the deal, haven't you?
Somebody's asked on the live stream, what's the brown bag for? Did Nick bring breakfast?
I did. So for everyone who can see it, this is the Starbucks that I said beforehand, I gave one of these to the homeless guy. So someone's going to have to fight over the remaining 2 croissants. But yeah, I did. I thought, I'm very appreciative to be invited down to the amazing Breakfast Within a Studio. So Starbucks it is.
So did Clubhouse drive business outcomes for you then? Because I remember you were the host of or the creator of one of my favorite Clubhouse moments. Because if you remember back in the day, it was full of egos, like loads. Everyone like trying to be like the Don. And there's this guy came up in a room, like a really early room. And everyone had been sort of asking like business questions about scale up and stuff. And there was probably about, back in those days again, when there was only like 6 people who'd be like moderated because they were like the oracles. And this guy's like, oh yeah, hey, I've got a question for the panel. I'm looking at aerospace and the aeronautic industry. And, can anybody help with that? And he sort of like dropped it out. Anyone help with that? And you were like, oh yeah, I've done 17 satellite launches for a client. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Took him down to Chinatown. So did it drive value other than sort of the collaborations and the sort of the network that's extended? Is there like an actual tangible
it's accelerated outcome? in terms of like generating money and things like that. It has, and I'm not one of these guys who goes into I made millions off Clubhouse and now I'm a trillionaire sort of thing, but it was significant enough that we changed some of the things we were focusing on across the businesses that I have.
Oh really?
And we accelerated some of the things that are always in the back of my mind, but probably I hadn't put enough intention behind. So I was doing coaching consultancy stuff in one of my businesses. A lot of that was more the consultancy and advisory on what we call scale to sale. And we'll get into this, how do you scale up to an exit? But then people were asking a lot about acquisitions, and I hadn't really probably taught people or really kind of explained exactly all those years in private equity how to do that. So literally from stage, people were asking, how do you do the stuff you're talking about? So we then developed and launched programs around acquisitions and scale up specifically for business owners who want to scale up our acquisitions. And that was something that was always in play, but we hadn't accelerated. We ended up selling 2 full cohorts of that program, literally from stage in Clubhouse.
Really?
First one we sold out really quick. And then the second one we ran. And then we're launching a whole new version of that program in September. And that all came from Clubhouse. So I wouldn't have done that in the way that I have now done it had I have not got the feedback from Clubhouse or had enough people almost like crowdsourcing and testing the demand for that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you, I know that obviously a lot of people here will know you. Maybe they've heard your iTunes #1 podcast, Scale Up Your Business, or, heard you on various other platforms, etc. 250,000 downloads, 130 countries. I've just read that on the screen. That's good, isn't it?
I went on his podcast.
Did you? Oh, is that when it blew up? That's when it blew up. That's right, makes sense. That success is now all now I'm.
It's a great conversation. Actually, I loved it. I still get great feedback from that. Everyone, the real Ash, as they say.
And the feedback is good on you, Nick, for doing your bit for charity. But obviously, a lot of people on this app will know of you. But for those who don't, who is Nick Bradley?
God, here we go. Do you remember when you used to come into Clubhouse rooms and have to do an introduction every single time?
Like, we should do that next week. We should do a room. There's nothing but old school intros.
Different every week. It's going to be different again now.
Well, Breakfast with Winners, by the time you got through the moderators, that would be the first hour.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
I tell you what, the award, for people who've been on the app for some time, the award for the best intro and the most consistent intro is Sahel Khan, the joint venture expert. Like, honestly, every time, I reckon I could do his intro. I was a millionaire. No, I was broke and then I'm a millionaire. No. So people who don't know me, I'm Australian, right? You can probably tell from this weird hybrid accent. I moved to the UK in 2003 after some stints in the US. Spent a long time working in the world of corporate, some of the big media companies. So I worked for News International for a long time in the sort of transition from magazines into digital media. And then I worked for a big company in the US called Getty Images, which some may have heard of.
Okay.
And that was my first, I suppose, introduction into the world of private equity and just understanding how do you scale businesses both quickly and create value through things like acquisitions. So while I was at Getty, we did 113 acquisitions. We basically bought everything that was stock photography, video, music, every piece of sort of digital content asset we acquired. And I was there through one of the big exits, but there were 3 separate exits that business did. So the guy called Jonathan Klein, who was the CEO and founder, he sold the business to private equity, then it took it public, and then he sold it to private equity again. And so literally had 3 or 4 bites of the cherry, just crazy numbers. So once I was in that world, I then got introduced into the whole private equity network, which is where I've spent the bulk of my career, sort of 10, 15 years now. And just been involved in basically lots of scale-ups, lots of turnarounds. I was a guy who was taken into businesses that were failing. They'd been bought by a private equity firm. We can get into how that all works if you want to. and then it wouldn't work out, which is quite common. They would send me in, and I'd have to do the fix-up job, which is in its own right not a lot of fun. But you're going in there and you're taking costs out, you're rebuilding the machine to get it creating value. And then I would be remunerated by both being in these businesses, turning them around, but also the value that I could bring from what it was worth when I went in versus what it was worth when I left. And that was, substantial when you think about the way these things work. So I've done that. And then a few years back, about 3 years ago, I had this kind of, you guys seen Jerry Maguire?
Yeah.
Like I had the Jerry Maguire moment, right? Which my wife still hates me talking about this, but I had this kind of wake up in the middle of the night situation where it was like, seriously, what the hell are you doing? I felt quite soulless because I was getting involved with lots of entrepreneurs who had created great businesses. And then I was getting in there and working with the private equity firms. And I don't want to say exploiting it, but, we were going in there and we were getting
you have a mission as private equity, don't you? You have a purpose and a mission.
It's changed a bit and I don't want to kind of be down on it. But when I was involved in it the very early days, it was a little bit like, if you've seen Billions with Bobby Axelrod, and a little bit like Gordon Gekko in Wall Street. It was a bit like that, right? It was really alpha. And it
looks amazing from the outside though, doesn't it? It just looks so cool. Sorry.
Well, it is fun. It is fun, but you do have to kind of look at yourself in the mirror and have a cold shower afterwards, because you are sort of selling your soul depending again on what your values are. So anyway, a few years back, I had this situation. I know Paul knows about it because I spoke about it when I was on his podcast, where I literally woke up in the middle of the night having cracked my teeth, the right side of my jaw, from a number of things that were going on. I was closing a few deals for a private equity firm. My dad had passed away quite recently. I was just having this like, what the hell am I doing with my life moment? And literally cracked my teeth. And
from grinding them? From stress?
I had been grinding them anyway. And this one night, I remember I wasn't feeling well anyway. I was just getting really, really worn out and burned out and sort of just not feeling myself. Went to bed and had clenched down. I don't know what I was thinking or dreaming or whatever else, but I woke up and it felt like I'd been bitten by something or something had sort of hit me in the face. I went to the bathroom and my face was swollen just here. And, by the way, everyone who's looking on the live stream, I'm pointing to the right side of my face. And I went to the doctor the next morning and I was in a lot of pain. And I went to the dentist and I'd cracked the back sort of part of my tooth off. And I must have swallowed it because it wasn't there anymore. The dentist said that she'd seen this before in people who've got high stress jobs or people who don't manage their stress very well, which was certainly me back then. And I remember after that incident, I decided, that's it, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then I recreated what I'm doing now through the podcast and just decided to, I suppose, work more on the side of the business owner. Still work with private equity, but work more on how can I help, business owners create entrepreneurial freedom? How can I do that and bring everything I've learned from the world of private equity to small and medium businesses to help them, be able to achieve what they want to achieve?
Wow, what a journey. What was your, you mentioned that sort of working with big media companies and then Getty. What was your sort of inroad into that world in the first place? Because you don't sort of start out as someone who has the ability to fix or turn around businesses. What was your initial sort of road into that world? Yeah, so I started a business when I was 18 years of age. And this is actually, it's on my profile. I wrote it ages ago, but I started the business and it kind of failed. I sold it for like, I think $3,000 Australian dollars. And it was a personal training gym in 1991 in Adelaide. Adelaide, for people who don't know Australia very much, Adelaide's at the very, very bottom. Lovely place. Yeah. No, I joke about this a little bit, but it is literally famous for big sharks, because they did film a lot of the open water stuff from Jaws in South Australian waters, because there's lots of big great white sharks there. Churches, like, I don't know why we've got so many churches in Adelaide. I've never looked it up. It's just the most boring stat in the world. And serial killers. We have like seriously high amounts of serial killers. It's true. This is all true, right? You can look it up. Like some really weird stuff happened in Adelaide, and I grew up there. And then there was this point, you can see where this is going. I thought, I got to get out of this place. So I started this business. Eaten, killed, or become a killer. Either way, it doesn't work out well. And so I had this personal training business. It was successful in terms of, I was doing about 20 or 30 hours of personal training. I had 3 or 4 staff. I was 19 years of age. But I thought, what, is this what I want my life to be? Do I want to be living in Adelaide? Maybe I can have 2 or 3 or 4, personal training studios. And back in the early 90s, no one knew what this was. But what was fascinating about it is I had clients who
firstly could afford personal training and appreciated what it was. And so these days, lots of people have personal trainers, but back in the 90s, it was doctors, lawyers, politicians, all sorts of pretty high profile people. And one of my clients was friends with the nephew of Rupert Murdoch, a guy called Matthew Hanbury. And so my first job in media, when I went from Adelaide to Sydney, was as the marketing manager and fitness editor. We did everything for Men's Health magazine, which was owned under Matthew Hanbury and the Rupert Murdoch empire. So that's how I got into media from personal training. And then once I was in that world, I just sort of stayed in that world for quite a while until I decided to break into the private equity scene.
How do you go from being a PT to being the marketing manager? That's quite a change of job role.
There is a very quick story here, which I'll share with you, which is quite interesting. So when I went to Sydney, I didn't have much money. I said I sold my business for literally enough to kind of be over there for about a month.
I remember seeing this in your bios. I sold my first business for $3,000. No, there's no zeros missing. This was when everyone was hyping what they'd done.
I thought this is it. I need to go and I needed to change my environment and change my trajectory, right? And so you could argue, you know, you're an entrepreneur, right? That's where you should be. But no, at that point in time, I thought, you know what, I can't be where I was. But because I didn't have many contacts, I had about 3 or 4 people to follow up in Sydney when I was over there. I had a month to get a job. One of them was this Men's Health gig. So I went to an interview with the then marketing director, and she was pretty blunt. She said, listen, you know, I did a degree in marketing years ago. She got a marketing degree, you've got no experience. However, we do have a job, a marketing manager's job for Men's Health. And I remember saying in this interview, I said, what do I need to do to get the job? And she said, well, you're not going to get it. We've had like literally hundreds of applications. It's huge. But listen, write a plan and send that plan to me in the next week or so. And we might bring you in for an interview because of your connection with Matt Hanbury. And so I thought, what am I going to do here? So I remember leaving that interview. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I went home and I stayed up until 4 a.m. next morning. And I wrote something like a 27-page business plan, which seems crazy and stupid, right? Because what did I write? But I thought, I'm going to just put everything into this. And I remember sending it the next morning so that she would have it by 9 a.m. And she called me up at 1 and said, you've got the job.
Really?
That was it.
Wow.
I mean, it was a pretty crap business plan, but the point was, I mean, I did clip art. Old school. Oh, you know, it was formatted, it was printed. You know, it was all really nicely done when I emailed it to her. But I think the thing was that I showed, you know, drive, tenacity, grit, you know, and desire for that job, and then they gave me a chance after that.
Amazing. So how did you transition from the sort of the marketing side of it to the sort of the acquisition part?
Yeah, so this is the thing. So I stayed in the world, I call it the world of corporate, because I got promoted through that pretty quickly. So I was marketing manager for about 18 months with Murdoch, and then I went to a company called EMAP, UK company, East Midlands Allied Press, and I was the marketing manager of FHM magazine.
Oh, do you remember FHM magazine? That was brilliant.
What were the other ones? Nuts,
Maxim,
Zoo.
Zoo. That's right.
You know, I knew as soon as I mentioned this, like everyone's eyes just lit up in the studio. Like, you should see it. No,
I may have bought some of those magazines when I was a teenager.
Well, I was the marketing manager of FHM in Australia, and we also did Empire magazine, the movie magazine, a few others.
Right.
And so I got into that world, and it was from when I joined, FHM was number 3 in the men's sort of magazine category, and we got it to number 1 within a year. And then I got invited over to the UK from that. And basically it was a secondment for 9 months to come and work on all the car and motorcycle magazines over here. So Max Power, Car Magazine.
Oh my God, do you remember Max Power? It was so good.
All those. So I came over on that. And then again, it was similar sort of, I suppose there's a thread here. I had 9 months to prove myself in the UK. If I could do a good job here, they'd keep me. And I did. So they then said, listen, we want to make your role permanent. And that was 2003. So I've been in the UK now for that long. But it was, it was just kind of, I stayed in this world because I kind of thought, this is what you do, right? You go and get a job and you have a salary. And I had a lot of people when I was younger saying, you know, that's what success is. But because I'd had that entrepreneurial spark when I was 19, I always felt somewhat repressed when I was employed. And even though I was getting promoted, I was a bit of a difficult bastard to be around. Like, you know, ego very high, pretty aggressive, the whole piece. Everything was about the next promotion, next paycheck for years. And that's what got me into the private equity world, I think, because there's a point where, you know, like attracts like.
Yeah.
And I was super aggressive. Like if someone gave me a target, like that was hit. There's nothing, you know, I would push people out the way to get that done. And that just started to get me known, I suppose, in that industry, which is what, you know, got me into the Bobby Axelrod world. If you watch that.
Talking of publishing, I'm just trying to Google it to find out. There was, I'm not sure if he owned EMAP or not, but there was, in 2008, I ran the marathon, and it was my first entry into sort of audio books. And I listened to a book by one of the big publishing, I can't remember.
Felix Dennis.
Felix Dennis, that was it. That was one of the first audiobooks I ever listened to. Brilliant book.
Yeah, so Dennis Publishing was like, I mean, a lot of their stuff were competitors.
That's right, yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, because he's got a house not very far away from where I am. And it's like, apparently it's this amazing palace thing. But yeah, no, yeah, that the publishing world, if you think about Rupert Murdoch and you think about all the stuff that was going on, it was crazy times.
Yeah.
I mean, we had parties like the FHM 10 years of, was it 100 Sexiest Women? Party was crazy, right? I'm conscious people were living on
best night out ever, but you just wouldn't get away with it nowadays, would you? That whole like 100 sexiest list, it was like you just wouldn't get away with that kind of mentality anymore.
No,
would you?
and the whole thing, and this is the thing with media, you know, some of the stuff is transparent, a lot of it isn't. Like, you know, so if you look at the stuff with Heat and Closer, which was in the stable of EMAP as well, you know, the people were paid to say certain things for editorial stories. And, you know, I sort of got a little bit cynical about the whole media game after a while. And when I left and went to Getty, you know, it was the right transition because EMAP was sold. So one of the exits I was involved in, which was one of the last big exits before the sort of 2008 crash, was the sale and breakup of EMAP
to Bauer.
Well, part of it was to Bauer and part of it was to a private equity group called Apex Partners. So EMAP at the time was a B2C and a B2B organization. And the B2C was sold to Bauer and still is part of Bauer Media Group now. But that was my sort of time to leave because I was involved in that exit. I had to make like something like 600 redundancies in the lead up to that process because I was on the board of one of the biggest divisions. And it was all about literally cutting back to get the highest possible price. And this was the start. I thought, that was the first thing that really made me think, do I really want to be doing this sort of stuff? And then I went into the Getty world and that was more about growth as opposed to kind of cost cutting, more about, you know, acquisitions and all that sort of stuff. But that was the first foray. So around about 2008 was when I really kind of got into the world of private equity and really started getting into all that stuff.
Is Getty Images, a cynical question or a stupid question maybe, is Getty Images anything to do with the Getty family at all?
It has there is a loose connection to it.
Is that where the name was taken from?
So there's two founders. There's a guy called Mark Getty and Jonathan Klein. And so Mark Getty was the guy who put a lot of the cash into it. They were both sort of investment bankers, Wall Street guys. And they saw an opportunity for disruption within an industry. And back then, Getty was literally stock photography being sent around with these catalogs.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so if you wanted to get like, you know, if you're a media company or an agency and you want to kind of, you know, do a brand campaign, you'd literally get these stacks of photos would be posted to you in the mail.
That's right. You buy the license to use each individual photo, didn't you? That's right.
And the Getty, Mark Getty and Jonathan basically said, you know what, we're going to turn it all into digital. So if you think what was Getty in the end, Getty was actually a technology business. It was based out of Seattle. They deliberately based it out of Seattle to be close to Microsoft. And they just had an amazing platform with search algorithms and a way of distributing content, which we now think is just kind of normal, through technology. And that's why it was such a valuable business. Yeah. That was an exit that was in the billions as well when I was involved. So I think that was about $2 billion. Yeah.
Wow, what a journey. So how do you go from, was it literally the sort of the dislike of having to make people redundant and you're like, actually private equity can be it's about growth, not about cost cutting? Was that kind of like your
I was
transition?
still pretty young back then, right? So when I was involved in that first piece, which was the EMAP sale, the funny thing about it, right, if I look back in hindsight, it's the stuff that happens at the boardroom tables, which is just fascinating. I'm still fascinated by decisions that are made. And with the EMAP sale, there was the CEO who at the time didn't think the business should be broken up. And there were a few of the original people involved who agreed with that. And if I look back in hindsight, I probably think that's probably true. It didn't have to be sold in the way it was. But the chairman at the time, Alan Cathcart, he was like, I'm going to break this thing up. So he sacked the CEO. He assumed the CEO position and then got the business ready for exit. And you know, the numbers these guys are making, right, you know, when they're involved at that level, you know, in the space of 18 months, tens of millions of pounds personal income coming out of these decisions. And of course, it's positioned as, oh, this is great for shareholders. And to some extent, there is that. But because I was at the coalface running the divisions and being involved on the board, I could see the impact on the people in these businesses too. So, when you hear and see things like, I don't know the detail of Thomas Cook or anything like that, but when you see some of these big decisions that are made, you kind of think, oh, is there another way of doing it? Is there not? And having been close to it. So that was the first part of it. And I sort of, I still felt that, but I still lent into private equity for a while to get closer to understanding how it worked. So I've seen the good and the bad side of that now.
Wow, this is so interesting. It's just a world that I don't really know that much about, actually, but I think it's fascinating. So you went from, how long did you sort of work for other people before you created your own, the fielding group and what you're doing now for others? Is it like more of a consultant sort of thing now?
It started off. So it's only about 3.5 years old, really, when I think about it. So the way I explain it is when I had the teeth breaking incident and my epiphany, my Jerry Maguire moment, I realized that I'd been I suppose I've been living a life really that was of the expectation of others for various reasons, from growing up, everyone said, get a job, all that. And I was repressing my own entrepreneurial ability and streak, if you like. And when I realized that was the thing that was also affecting me. So it was partly, I don't want to kind of be doing what I'm doing anymore. Plus, actually, I want to be taking a bit more control over my own future, ambition, destiny, whatever. Then that was the transition. So I literally, after the teeth breaking incident, I called up a friend of mine who sold his business. He was in his late 20s, and it was effectively, he was an investor in Love Film, which was sold to Amazon, and he walked away with, I think, $65 million. So I called him up from his island and said, listen, you were always the sort of odd one back at sort of university when I knew him. He didn't really come out drinking and playing pool with the rest of us. He wasn't really studying either, but he was just reading and more focused on stuff. And he always said, listen, I'm gonna make millions before I'm 30. And we all laughed at him, crazy guy. But he did. And so I called him up and said, listen, this is what's happened, the private equity thing. And I said, listen, I need some help. What do you suggest? And that's where he said, listen, get on a plane. And he said, go to a Tony Robbins event. So just get yourself into a different environment for a few days. Because he went to his first UPW, Unleash the Power Within, when he was 21, and then ended up, focused and created this business and sold it. So I thought, this is interesting. I need to do something. So I ended up getting on, I watched this documentary on Netflix, which is something called
I'm Not Your Guru.
That's the one. Yeah, I watched that with my wife, and she's like, oh God, here we go. and I sort of, she could see that I was like really into it. And I sort of said to her afterward, and she predicted this. She goes, you want to go to one of these events, don't you? And I said, yeah, do you want to come? She goes, no way.
No. Cheers, mate, but no.
No, it's not going to happen. So I jumped online after that, and I found that the next event was like 3 weeks away. It was in Chicago. So I just literally bought a ticket and jumped on a plane, went by myself. And it was 4 days of I hadn't stopped and thought about all the stuff that had been going on for over 10 years. It just didn't work with me. I was always go, go, go. So this was a time to really reflect on what was important to me. And one of the things that came out of that event for me was this idea that I was very head-led with all my decisions. Everything was about how much money I could make, all this sort of stuff. There was no thinking kind of, from your heart, and any intuition. And so when I was in the event, I saw that they did this meditation thing. And it was really weird for me. Oh, this is strange. Not to mention everyone dances around at the event. That's even weird, and hugs each other. But yeah, it's a bit out there. But I then sort of connected with this thought, which was, why are you doing this stuff that doesn't serve you anymore? Trust that you can do something that fulfills you as well as, has sense of achievement, and has all the financial rewards that you've had from private equity, but just go and do it on your own terms. So I came back and I didn't do the like burn the boat thing. So for people who don't know that expression, there's this romantic idea that, you're going to chuck it all in and you're going to quit your job and, all this sort of stuff. And then 2 weeks later, you realize you can't pay the mortgage. I thought, I'm not going to do that. But I came back and made the decision that I'm going to leave the world of private equity and not work for private equity in the way that I was. But I'm going to be very strategic and I'm going to build what I need to build to be able to make that change as painless as it possibly can be for my family. Now, to be clear and honest with everyone, remember, I've had years of private equity money. So, private schools, Porsches, $1 million houses, all that sort of stuff, right? Woe is Nick. But I didn't want my family to suffer. So if I was going to give up on that, I wanted to make sure that the lifestyle that they had was going to be maintained. So what I did is I looked around, thought, how can I do this? And I thought, I'm going to start a podcast. That was the first thought. Don't know where that came from.
Good move.
That wasn't going to get you your $1 million houses, your Porsches, and pay for private school.
No, but I was aware of some things, and this is where, you know, and we all know Mr. Rob Moore. This is where it was quite funny. So I was in Peterborough with a mate of mine, and we went to a bowling alley with the kids, right? Hollywood Bowl. And my mate said, "Oh, do you know that guy over there?" And I said, "No, who's that guy?" And it's Rob Moore. Rob Moore's there with his kids bowling. And my mate says, "Oh, he's pretty successful, and he's, you know, pretty good at marketing, all this sort of stuff. You should check him out, right?" And I thought, "Oh, okay, whatever." And I looked him up, and I thought, "This is interesting." So this guy, and he's kind of, you know, he's got this podcast, and he's doing all these different things. And I thought, I just had a spark of thinking, well, hold on, how can I sort of help people more? Because I needed to do that. That was one of the things that came out of my reflection of being at Tony Robbins. And how can I build a bigger platform based on my media experience as well, so I can get my voice out there? And then perhaps off the back of that, I can then, you know, do some coaching, some consultancy, and start to build things from that. So that was the starting point. Now, here's the thing, right? And I'll be honest about it. So I was still working for private equity while I was building the stuff I've got now. And I've got 7 separate companies now, which I can go through. But it was a bit like, the way I describe it, it's a bit like if you're building an extension on your house, and you're building the extension, and then everything's kind of a mess until you knock it through, and then all of a sudden you've got, you know, a bigger house. So I was building the foundations and the infrastructure of scale up your business and everything I've done now while working at private equity. And what was happening is the chairman of the business that I was doing a turnaround in, he kept saying, "Oh, Nick, what's this podcast? You know, this podcast you're doing, it's starting to annoy us. We don't like the fact that you're doing all these things. And your LinkedIn profile says that you're, you know, doing scale up your business, doesn't say that you're here helping us." And I said to my wife, I said, "Listen, I'm going to write a letter. And this is my resignation letter. And the day that they call me in is the day that I'm going to hand the letter." And she said, "That's great, as long as, you know, we're not going to lose the house and everything because of your stupid decision to go and see Tony Robbins." and I said, okay.
Tony will pay the bills.
Well, no, it was all right. It wasn't that bad. Like we had some cash and stuff. So long story short, right, is it took a year before the chairman called me in and said, "That's it. The podcast has to be closed down. You got to stop."
Really?
Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, it had reached number 1 and had some early success. And we got to number 17 in the US.
Why was that? Did he feel threatened?
The world, that world, if you are part of that world, right, and you're in the club, it's all, you know, pats on the back and, you know, chinks of red wine glasses and all that sort of stuff. If you're the black sheep in that world and you're starting to raise your head above it, then get prepared to get it chopped off aggressively.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. I was starting to do something that they couldn't control, right, or felt they could control, which I knew. I mean, I knew this was going to happen, but I just wanted to buy some time and build some things out.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, people were coming to me after the podcast had some success, and particularly some of the stuff. The first 25 episodes is me just sharing stuff around what you should do to create value in businesses. People reached out to me and wanted consultancy. And of course, I couldn't do that myself. So I brought a business partner in, and then we just basically outsourced everything that came through to associate consultants and everything else. So I didn't actually do any of the work at all, but I would then funnel it off, and then I could take a margin of that as a business owner. So therefore I wasn't breaking any contracts with my private equity deal.
So with that deal in that instance, are you acting the role of like consultant, or do they effectively do they take you on as like an employee? Like, were they within their rights to get annoyed about the podcast?
In this situation, I was an interim CEO on a turnaround. So I was paid to be in there. Plus I had equity in that business. So I had to give up the equity when I left. But they're pretty relaxed about it. Sometimes I would go in as a consultant for some firms, but this particular deal was not that. So I needed to be a little bit cautious about how I would do it.
So you had to look like you worked for the company, not that you were, consulting to that company.
Yeah, exactly. Because that was the contract I'd agreed on this particular deal. So the way it works in private equity, you'll normally go in sometimes as a non-exec or a chairman, but in this case, I was the interim CEO on a roll-up strategy. So what we call a platform business. They'd bought a business, wasn't performing well. I was going in there to turn it around, and then we were going to go and buy lots of other businesses, bolt it together, and then sell the thing in sort of 3 years' time.
Gotcha. God, what an interesting conversation this is. I feel like I just want to keep talking to Nick for hours. I'm
sure
aware.
Everyone's bored. Everyone's like, what's he talking about? I'm looking at the app. There we go. Some friends there.
The app might have even crashed, to be fair. We've not even spoken to anyone from the audience yet, have we? But we would definitely.
I'm sure somebody would have sent us a message if they can't hear us.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But I think this is really important because we talked. We started after the conversation this morning before you got here. Talk about how important is it to understand your exit before you get started and all that kind of stuff. And it's added massive value actually to understand your journey.
It was quite interesting. The conversation this morning went the way of, because there's many people in the room that have got personal brands. I don't know if you was listening on the way in at all.
Yeah, I did hear it. Well, I heard it when I came in.
Basically people were talking about if, do you need an exit as a personal? If you're a personal brand, the personal brand is you. So the exit is when you close your eyes at night or go to sleep or never wake up. That is that was the
Abercrombie always makes it dark.
The conversation was, do you if you're a personal brand, how do you exit? And we mentioned somebody that we know who's built a huge personal brand and is this, has millions and millions of pounds worth of overhead and has to do Facebook Lives every day, has to jump on Instagram every day to sell their products to keep the lights turned on. And
yeah, okay. I mean, I have a strong view on it, right? You don't have to, if you think about some of the biggest empires in the world, right? They usually have, not always, but they usually have someone who's the figurehead of them. And the obvious ones are the Musks and the Bransons and all of that, right? So, what you've got to do is differentiate between business brand, product brands, and personal brands, right? So they are all different, but this is where, this will absolutely talk to you because I know you like process and system, Paul, but the whole thing.
Oh, does he?
He's getting excited.
Let me get a notepad out. Actually, don't worry. I'm auto AIing it automatically. Go on, Nick. Keep talking.
As soon as I can get a robot that replaces you, that's you'll be gone.
But the word to add to that is structure, right? So just structure it. Just structure your business on a way that those brands can interrelate in a way that's going to create value, but at the same time allow you to differentiate. And so I can be clear on the stuff I've done. So I created Scale Up Your Business because I thought initially my brand needed to give that momentum, give that ignition. My personal brand is changing. So I'm relaunching in October under something different because some different opportunities have presented themselves around that. So Scale Up Your Business will still exist as it is, as a coaching consultancy business. And I've got other investments that I've made through acquisitions. My brand will be broader than that, through things I can explain a bit later. So I can still be someone who drives interest engagement through whatever my message is around that. But if someone wants to come along and buy SUYB one day, which is the plan, we're working back from an exit massively on that. The whole thing is orchestrated for an exit. Then we're very clear about the timing, what that needs to look like, all the foundations, and making choices along the way which allow us to be in a position to do that.
So you mentioned a minute ago, you talked about personal brand, product brand, and business brand. So something like with Scale Up Your Business, which was the number one podcast, and then sort of turned into like this offshoot of coaching consultancy.
Yeah.
In your mind's eye, how do you position that? Is that product brand? Is that
it's a business brand?
That's a business brand.
So the way I look at it, so my brand, Nick Bradley. So I sort of, it's quite funny actually. I remember the conversation with Rob about the name, and I'll kind of share this with you because he was like, call it Grow Your Business with Nick Bradley, right? And I'm like, yeah, but that's boring, right? And everyone talks about growing. And at that point in time, people weren't talking much about Scale Up 3 or 4 years ago. If you go into Clubhouse, every second room is a Scale Up room now.
Yeah.
So I sort of came into it quite early. There wasn't a Scale Up podcast, right? So I was like one of the first ones to do it. So I thought, okay, well, what does Scale Up mean? Well, there is a big difference between growth and scale. Big difference, right? And not many people understand it. So I'll talk about the difference. And then people started to come to me and say, well, hold on, what about just scaling up everything? Like, how do you scale up your life really? So my brand's moving more into that space, not scale up your life, but it's scale up kind of, how are people doing extraordinary things that make a difference in the world, both from a financial perspective, but also from a change or a difference, right? So that's my brand. And I've got people coming on the podcast now that are not just very successful in business. They're doing.
That's why Ashley was on. That's why Ashley made it onto the show.
he ticks a number of boxes.
Diversity and inclusion.
I had Evan Carmichael on last week.
I need Lucien back.
You missed it. I didn't protection.
So I had Evan Carmichael on last week. I did interviewed a guy called Mel Abraham last night. And these are guys who are quite big in different circles, but they're doing big business stuff, but they're also doing other things. So what I've done is I'm distancing what I'm doing to be able to have that platform, which, and I'll be again transparent here, that is going to become a media business. So that is a speaking and advertising business, right? So my brand. SUIB is a coaching consultancy business brand. And then if you go deeper into SUIB, we have product brands. So the Empire Creation Accelerator is our program, which teaches people how to scale up their businesses via acquisitions. And then we have a mastermind that's launching in Vegas in November called the Imperium Club, which is you have to be 7 figures to enter that. And that's about how do you build a business from 7 figures to exit for 8. And I'm doing that in partnership with 2 guys that I met on Clubhouse. So Kiala,
oh, really?
Yeah, Kiala Kanai and Rohan Chef. So Kiala's about to go to Funnel Hacking Live to pick up, I think it's 5 10 million funnel awards.
Really?
Yeah. So
wow.
He's doing it. And then Rohan runs all the advertising for Grant, Brendan, Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi. So we've got that coming. So they're, just to be clear, they are product brands underneath SUIB, and then my brand is just diverging to be a bigger platform, partly because I want to have different conversations as well.
Gotcha. So it's kind of to sort of break it down to an analogy that people understand. You're going to become Branson, SYB is going to become Virgin, and then you've got Virgin Media, Virgin Gyms, Virgin Mobile. Precisely.
But the only difference to that is I'm not going to have everything branded under like a Virgin. So not everything is SUIB.
Yeah.
We've got the Fielding Group, which is an investment business as well, where we do our own acquisitions, and then we've got our acquisitions. So there's different brands that fit under the portfolio, that some of them are acquired. So therefore, I'm not going to try and stamp them with my brands.
Yeah.
But they just fit under the mini empire.
Mini empire. This is awesome. This is fascinating, isn't it? I guess we better invite some other people to join in the conversation, frankly, because I'm sure there's 1,000,001 questions that people have got. So if mods and speakers, obviously we're talking this morning to quickly reset the room with the one, the only Nick Bradley, originally from the slightly strange town of Adelaide, and now from the even more slightly strange town of Peterborough. And yeah, we're talking this morning about startup to exit. We're talking about how to grow your brand via acquisition. I'm sure there's loads of questions and queries about that. Really, what an interesting journey.
So we do a quick reset. Ashley can get the coffees. We can eat Nick's croissants. And then we'll be back in about 30 seconds.
There's a lot to cram into 30 seconds, isn't it? Go. Ash, run to the coffee machine. Go. I'm the coffee boy. We all know that.
You are listening to Breakfast with Winners. Exclusive content direct from the Winners Club. If you are enjoying the conversation, click on the green Monopoly house at the top of the screen right now and join the thousands of winners already in our community. For more information about the Winners Club, head to thewinnersclub.club. Now, back to the show.
Slight issue with these fancy sounding resets is that they only last 30 seconds and no one in the studio seemed to realise. Paul's now got to get a coffee. Nick's gone for a wander around the building to look at Paul's serviced accommodation. While he's not here.
Serviced office, not serviced accommodation.
Sorry, serviced office. The serviced accommodation is where you become another part of your empire. What an interesting dude. I knew it was obviously going to be interesting. Oh, yeah. Wow, Abercrombie. Have you not got a robot for this? Hello, sir. Would you like a cortado? Please press 1 for an additional shot of cappuccinos.
Do you have them Hoovers at home? The ones that just go
this is great. Answer this honestly. Answer that honestly. Have you got a robot Hoover? Answer the truth.
He's got more than one, hasn't he? I bet you he's got more than one that just sits down the rooms.
Speak into that microphone now. Come on. What happened? Go on.
There's a really bad problem with the robot Hoovers because they run out of battery before they can finish. That's the honest question. So I did get some. I got some of the Dyson ones, and they're good, but they run out of battery before they can complete the whole Hoover, and then they go back and charge themselves up, and then they got a really bad habit. If anyone's got them, you'll know this problem. They do a bit of the hoovering, then they go back to their base station, to charge back up, take about 4 hours, and then you'll be in bed in the middle of the night, like 2 o'clock in the morning, and the Hoover will start up downstairs. They're not the quietest. So yeah, there's good idea, but the practicalities of them are not that good.
So yeah, okay.
Okay, perfect. Lovely. Right, so guys, Nick is coming back in 2 minutes. He's just grabbing a coffee. Who wants to ask Nick a question? Give us a flash of a mic just so we can see who wants to ask Nick a question. Who's there? Give us a flash of a mic, please.
Can we double check who's enjoying this conversation as well? Give us a flash if you're enjoying this conversation. This has been, for me, like an absolute deep dive into a world that I didn't even really know that much
There's a lot of
about.
flashes on the stage here. So yeah, guys, he's come back in the room. So guys, let's walk down the...
Oh, someone's at an airport and listening in. That's great.
Sorry, it's me.
I knew it would be you. Where are you flying to? Where's the party at this weekend? Ibiza.
I'm at a gym. I'm at a gym. Don't worry. Nick, welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad everyone is enjoying the conversation. So Iffy was flashing the microphone. Have you got a question, Iffy, that you want to put to Nick or anyone else? No, just put it to Nick, frankly.
I'm here. I'm back.
He's back. Go on, Iffy.
Hi. Oh, wow, Nick. That was brilliant. You know, there were so many moments where I love the story of the 20-something page business plan. I just love those stories because it really is about that. So thank you for sharing. It's been wonderful. My question is, so all these businesses that you've got, that you have all these layers to, how do you find the teams? And so my main question is, how do you find your people to create these these parts of your business, the layers?
Yeah, great. No, thanks for that, Iffy, as well. Yeah, and I might say the 20-page business plan, I cringe now because I quite like one-page business plans these days. But anyway, that was a lifetime ago. Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, and it still remains a challenge to find really great people. And I've kind of learned over the years that it comes first thinking about values and making sure that people align with the vision, the mission, and the values of how you want to work. And I think the reason I'm so acute to that these days is because there was that values mismatch for so many years when I was kind of making decisions that weren't based on those things. So that's the first thing I look for. I'm more interested in someone who believes in what we're trying to create in any of the businesses, that may not have the experience, but is prepared to do whatever it takes to be able to contribute and to achieve what we're trying to achieve. So that's the first thing that I look for. So in terms of where do I find those people, part of having a platform and speaking and doing those sort of things is you do attract people who want to have that conversation. So that's the first piece. So that has been very useful. There are people who have, I've met on this app actually, who are now working within the group because, they aligned with what, we talk about and what we're trying to achieve. The second thing I do is I do like to bring people into our world through networks as well. So I always, if I need someone, if there's a gap, it could be a skills gap or something like that, something more technical, I always go and ask my network first, people I trust, for recommendations and referrals. Now, you might say that's not very scalable, but for key roles and the ones that are closest to me, certainly, and my leadership teams, then we're very deliberate and intentional about who we bring in. So we like to have that recommendation first. With the businesses as we're starting to scale out, I'll give you a very quick answer to how we do that. So whenever we are employing anybody in one of our businesses, what we first do is we always ask people to do a video. And we ask it to be about 2 or 3 minutes. And it's usually questions which are, why do you want to work here? What is it about this opportunity that excites you? What are you trying to create in your life, and how does this going to contribute to this? And what's the one most important thing or most impactful thing that's happened to you in your career to date that you'd like to share? Now, we ask those 3 questions because we are interested in the answers. But to be honest, if you ask someone to do a video and they're not prepared to do it, then that for me is, straight away, they're not prepared to do what it takes to be part of it. So that's one of the things that we do. So hopefully that gives you a couple of different things.
Was that useful, Iffy?
Yeah, that's brilliant. I like that. So I think that's a great idea. Those questions are killer. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I love the fact that you mentioned that it's not really, you say, it's not really scalable to go for the sort of the recommendation route. But I think ultimately it's not always about the quantity of recommendations that you get. It's about the quality, isn't it? My team manager came via a local Facebook group.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, you got to speak to Della, you got to speak to Della. And then she, to your point, she got tagged into it. So she messaged me on Facebook. Then she found the email address for the company. So she emailed me. Then she phoned me. And I was like, wow, that tenacity. I'm like, I'm already sold on you.
Yeah, and it makes a big difference. And I think it comes back to, I'm not saying everything I've done is the right way to do it, but if I go back to that working all night, and I've done that a few times, I think back, when something has been important enough to me, I have lent into it and made sure that, you know what, if I don't get the opportunity, I did everything I possibly could to get it. There's nothing else I could have done that night.
So if you didn't win it, deep down,
yes.
I put everything in and it weren't meant to be.
Precisely that. And so my thinking is if an opportunity is there and someone wants to work with us, I want to see evidence that they're going to do what it takes to get it. That real drive and ambition to do it is important.
Awesome. Love it. I've got a quick question. Sorry. Just on I've had a million questions, so it's a bit greedy, but it's just popped into my head. What's the biggest shift that you have to have as an entrepreneur as opposed to sort of a private equity sort of profit hunter, with respect? Because obviously, in that private equity world and in the bigger businesses, you are, creating shareholder value, and you can like save some costs and make a £1 million difference to the bottom line, and then the city goes, well, that's actually worth 10 times that amount. What mentality do you have to have that's different when you're actually that small scale business entrepreneur and you're actually looking for profit rather than shareholder value?
Yeah, it's probably good to talk about the difference between growth and scale to this question, because, and the first thing I'll say is not everyone out there needs to create an empire, right? And definition of that is something that has significant scale, be that one huge business or a multitude of businesses. So not everyone needs to do that, right? It depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to create a really great lifestyle with a heap of freedom, you can still make 6-7 figures, as income off a small business. So, John Lee Dumas, who we both know, he's making 2-3 million off 6 people. He's in his empire, right? So to your question, right? So the shift for me is, the first shift is, you need to go from this idea that I'm an entrepreneur. You need to move into the sort of business owner kind of more expansive thinking. So first and foremost, why do people fail when they go from startup to scale up? Well, they fail because they don't understand it's not really about them anymore. It's about the people they bring around them, and it's about the processes and the structure, right? So that's one of the biggest things. So any business can grow, but for it to scale, it's got to have, as I said, the machine working brilliantly. So to your question about how does that change the mindset? Well, I think for people who create really substantial businesses, the whole game is the shift in identity. Right, the whole game is that. So you are constantly up leveling or scaling up, to use my word, right? You're constantly changing your identity because the challenges and the opportunities change. So to go from, I'm a business that makes profit, to now I'm creating shareholder value, just think about the change that you have to make personally to be able to drive that. You have to both increase sort of, your mindset around that. You've got to increase your education. You've got to increase your network. And so all of those things become, I think, parts of the journey. But I will say this, it doesn't matter if you don't want to go all the way through, right? Some people just want to jump off at certain points and not take it all the way through to that. We'll get into exits a bit later. I think it's important to understand what an exit really is. But I think, for me, creating a good, profitable business is good enough, right? Not for me personally, but for people I work with. But if you want to go and create shareholder value and do something that takes you to 9 to 10 figures, that's a totally different game.
Do you think there's a sort of a BS pressure that's on people now because, hashtag CEO, hashtag entrepreneur? Do you think people almost feel personally pressurized to I'm scaling my business? No, you're not. You're growing it, and you're going to get a couple of staff around you. You're going to pull 6 figures clear profit each year, live a nice lifestyle. But do you think there's that subconscious pressure that people are like, I'm scaling, where they don't actually need to, or maybe they've not even thought about whether they want to or not?
Yeah, you've got to be clear. The question that came up earlier was, do you have to prepare an exit in advance? So I'll give a thought on that now. My, again, personal perspective on that is, yes, you absolutely do, right? You have to at least have a vision of what that looks like. Now, the vision can change. You've got to be flexible that, you might say, actually, all I want to do is create a business that's making 7 figures, right? I'm now making 70 grand a year. I want to make a business that's going to make 7 figures. Okay, great. Right, that doesn't mean it's the end. Once you get to 7 figures, you then may say, what about 8 figures? But there's nothing wrong, if you like, with saying, actually, once I've achieved that first goal, that first milestone, that is what it is. So for me, the whole thing about an exit, and when I work with teams and businesses of all different sizes, I say, be clear on what the end feels like and looks like for you in the next part of your journey, right? And then work back from that. So, one of the sayings is, a goal is something that you come from, not something that you work towards. So what does that mean? That means you've got to envision what that goal is before you then take the action to get it. The pathway won't be the same, won't be that easy necessarily to get there, but you've got to be damn clear on that. And so I have that same conversation with someone who may be going to 7 figures as I do with someone who wants to, exit for 9 figures, because it's the same question. The answer might be different the way you articulate it.
Awesome.
It's funny, isn't it? Because the definition of a scale up is not what we all see as a scale up. Like we see going from many people in this room are business owners that want to, they want to scale, but that's not what the actual definition of a scale up is, isn't it? A scale up is we learned this from Scale Up Week, didn't we? When we done Scale Up Week, I can't even.
I forget what it is, but it's so ridiculous. It's like less than 50 people, and it's like less than.
It's more. No, it's more than. So it's ridiculous. It's like it's something like.
It's more than 200 staff and under 50 million in revenue or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was like
that's also defined as a mid-market company, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. So the government's definition of a scale up and supporting scale ups is like you're doing 50 million in revenue and you want to get to 150 million in revenue. Whereas our definition of scale up is going from
how do we do that, employers. Let's get to the bones of it. How do we do that? How do we go to 100 mil? No, I'm joking.
Oh, well, there are ways. I think, I've read those definitions and whatever. I think sometimes people like to put businesses and sort of business owners in boxes, right? Yeah. It's easy to do so for censuses and things. But, back to the growth versus scale up thing. What I find is anyone can get lucky with growth for a period of time, right? You can run a campaign, it works. But the challenge is, can you make that predictable, right? Can you make that precise? And so my definition of scale up is the predictability of growth, so then if you can replicate that, and how do you do that? Back to people, processes, having a great product proposition. But if you can get to that point where that you've got a recurring stream of the right customers coming in and driving that recurring revenue, that's where you get to sustainability. And I don't really care if you've got 5 employees or 150. If you've got that, you've got the scale up machine in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. We'll go back to asking people some questions. Paul is now digging into what the Scale Up Institute class is scaling up. Yeah, 'cause it was really interesting, wasn't it? When we first read it, we're like, well, that's pretty much everybody. Right. Mods and speaking.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, what people use the word scale up in the wrong context in this.
Well, I think there's the UK government's definition of a scale up, and then there's the reality that we all live with every day. Like, you telling your PA to do more stuff for you, that's scaling up.
Oh. And getting your PA a PA, that's double level scale up.
Process and precision are the key things, right? So the thing, and we talked a little bit about this. I think we've shared stages talking about this. If you've got the infrastructure in place, so the thing just works really well. It doesn't mean you don't optimize it and look at metrics and all that. But if you've got that in place where it's not you running around having to do everything all the time and you're the bottleneck and you're getting burnt out and stressed as the business founder, then you're creating a scalable business. And then you just have to increase what you're doing and then you build from those foundations. That's what it is. So whether it's, what was the figure again, Paul?
I'm still trying to find it. So I think it was 50 million.
50 million in revenue, wasn't it? And 200 staff or something along those lines. But I think that's been a great definition that you've given this morning, though. Are you actually creating something of scale, or are you just growing the business? There's a difference between growing the business and scaling it up. I think.
And I'll give you the checkpoint. This is the one thing I've always said to people. If you've got something which is scalable and then working with precision, leave the business for 3 months.
That's what you say as well. Oh, you've nicked off Nick Bradley. Now it makes sense.
I think we're kindred spirits or some crap.
Do you know what? Honestly, I wish I'd.
He says 3 months. He says 90 days.
Honestly, I wish I'd met Nick myself 6 years ago.
So do I. I wish I met Nick 6 months ago.
Because I done it. You would have been. Nick was on my podcast, and
you got a podcast.
Yeah, but I never pitch my podcast, my product.
Come over to my agency, actually.
Unlike James, who takes every single opportunity to tell you he's got a podcast agency.
I was on podcastgroup.com.
And we've got double standards, me and you, Ash, because if anybody else done that in the room, we'd remove them from the stage.
Try and remove me from the stage. Try and remove me from this room right now.
He's got second account.
Seriously,
Go up. I'm still here.
One thing that came out in that we spoke about in the podcast was, did I tell you I've got a podcast, by the way?
It's very subtle. Well done, Paul.
No, it was I done it the wrong way. Like I didn't know because I had nobody to reference. I didn't know the strategies for mergers and acquisitions and how you assemble businesses, how you roll up businesses and how you do all of that. I didn't know any of that. So literally how we would do it is I was obsessed with revenue gap. I called them revenue gaps, but basically where we would give money to a third party supplier for something. And I'd look at that. And so we was in the built environment. So we was in construction, architecture and all that stuff. And we would look at how much we would give to external consultants for our projects. And some of those we'd be giving like 2 million quid a year to external consultants for various bits that they were filling in our supply chain. And I'd look at that and go, wow, yeah, well, that's 2 million quid of money that we're just giving away. If we can make 20% on that, let's just employ somebody to do that job. So following very quickly, we just created department after department after department after department and brought all of the services in-house, which was great because we'd go to a client and we'd say, well, we can do it all for you and it's all in-house and come and look at our office and it's great. And we had all of these different teams working away and doing stuff. But then the liability stuff kicks in, especially in that industry where when you've got external suppliers, you can blame the external supplier and you can also you can pass losses to them. Contractually, you can enforce terms and conditions. Well, when that team is a different desk over there and they're in the same office as you and they're paid out of the same bank account and they're employees of the business, the excuses don't sit with the client when you say, well, actually the project's delayed because
that person and that company,
that person, had I have met Nick, I probably would have been acquiring businesses to fill those gaps and bring them under some sort of umbrella. But so that's
still got the same challenge there, though, haven't you? To some extent,
it's not really because you're bringing it when you buy it. You're buying the operator as well, aren't you?
And it all depends on there are certain things. Without getting too technical, it comes down to unit economics of kind of what you're trying to build, and then what is core to the business and what is not. So in the private equity space, you will see, and this happened quite a bit. There was a play about 5 years ago where, certainly in one of my roll-ups, we did 14 acquisitions, and then we had to try to make sense of what we'd bought. So it was like,
got all this stuff.
What is this now? And it was funny because and this was a challenge. We ended up selling that business because we turned the positioning of the whole thing into it being a data business, which it actually ended up being. But in the beginning, it wasn't. It was just, let's buy that, let's make sense of it. If you think about what you're trying to do there, you're trying to create something of value that's going to be sold up the chain. So it has to make some level of strategic sense. So in that sort of world now of private equity, a lot of the more established firms are very clear on people who are just trying to buy businesses and they're not really getting any of the integration or the synergy from it. So in Paul's world there, it would make sense to buy certain businesses that fit what we call up and down the value chain, but he doesn't necessarily have to create a group structure from that just to exit everything. He might create some sort of service capability that supports it, but the business could be a standalone in its own right.
Yeah, for me, it was all about revenue. So we would take a project value might be, 15 million, say, in construction value. Our fee as architects would be a percentage of that. Our fee as project managers would be a percentage of that. So if you looked at all of the small percentages that went on professional fees, it'd be quite a big number. So that's how we got incredible growth in revenue, because what we would do is, instead of just taking the 3% to do one part, we'd roll all of it up and sell it as a package, and we'll now be taking 12, 10, 15% in some cases for a completely rolled up service and provide all of the services. So that's how we went from small growth to huge.
And that is the private equity model. I mean, so PE firm will typically, and I've worked in sort of what I call mid-market private equity. So that's acquiring businesses that are usually the threshold is around sort of 4 to 5 million of EBITDA, right? And that will be your platform as a minimum. And then you'll bolt on businesses around that same sort of size together. So you might do 3 or 4 bolt-ons to create a roll-up. And then because you're looking at dominating a sector or an industry or a niche, then you will take any of the operational costs out of those businesses. So there's no point having 4 finance directors, 4 HR teams. You'll have a sort of shared service capability. And then the sales and marketing and product will sit as close to the customer as possible. And so, you know, we were looking at this. Personally, I like facilities businesses, right? So I look at security, corporate cleaning. We were looking at some landscaping businesses in Florida as well. We didn't get one away because the values were going up too high. But the idea was, if you can create, you know, if you think about gated communities in America, particularly in some of the Sunbelt states and whatever else, they have facilities management running those. So you'll have security, you'll have cleaning, you'll have landscaping. And so creating a group, for example, just giving that as an example of those 3 entities, then you actually have scale that you can then roll out. And that is actually a very, that sector, that sort of area is a very popular niche for private equity right now in North America, because you can just see how that makes sense. You're not going to go to 3 independent businesses if you can go to 1 and then get a long-term contract in place, because the economies of scale, the efficiency is going to be greater from that.
Wow. Who knew we were coming in for a masterclass this morning? I wish I had a pen and paper, frankly. I've been remembering it all in my mind. Have you found a definition of scale up now?
I don't know. Yeah, it's not quite what I wanted, but it's apparently, it's according to the Scale Up Institute, which is part of the UK government. A scale up SME is a company whose growth is 20% plus in the previous year and in each preceding 2 years.
You didn't see Nick's face when you were saying that.
What a load of nonsense.
So 20% year on year.
The microphone. I was about to go, oh my God, I hate these things.
Anyway, a load of nonsense. We're all scale-ups.
Thanks for clarifying that. What a load of nonsense. We're all scale-ups. Congratulations, guys. You're a scale-up.
I'm glad I wasted 10 minutes of my life Googling that.
Never get that back.
I like the thing that Nick just said. He was like, we bought so much, we had to sit back and go, what have we bought?
It was mental. There was one business in that. This was an exit in 2017 that we did, which was an education technology roll-up. But we bought one business that was a traditional publishing business, which is sort of my background as well. And there's no way that we could make it work in terms of making sense of it to the pitch to sell it. So we just decided to turn it into an internal support business, which was like supporting content to the main businesses. So it was like this kind of shared service content aggregator, but it wasn't. It was like a publishing business. But for some reason, Blackstone bought that story and thought, oh, we like the other parts of the business. So the other thing I think is, like, you know, not when you buy acquisitions, sometimes not every part of the acquisition is going to create the most value, right? They tend to take a life of their own. So sometimes you'll buy a business, integrate it, but it's just there to provide something. You know, it might even just be a little bit of revenue that bolts up the position, but you're not getting growth out of every part of the unit.
Awesome stuff.
Just a bit of housekeeping. There's somebody that's messaging some comments on, I think via the Facebook live stream feed. It just comes up as Facebook user. So if you can write a comment, just so I know, just put your name in there so we know who you are, because it just comes up as Facebook user, and somebody's put quite a lot of comments. I'm not quite sure if that's a Facebook error, because there's quite a lot of them.
That's a StreamYard thing, Paul, just so they know. So they have to actually allow StreamYard to share their name. So there should be a button on the post that they can press.
Oh, well,
and it'll show their name.
Lucky we got a marketing expert.
Good day, Matt.
Matty Wilson, everybody. Matty Wilson.
Oh, that was great.
Hasn't contributed very much, but contributed mega value.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Paul only noticed that, and he's only referenced to Facebook users because the last comment from him was, has Paul got a podcast? Right, come on.
Let's have some audience ask some questions.
Yeah, good idea.
Right, so guys, give us a flash of a little mic. Let's go down the panel. Wake up, let's go. David? Oh, you've just unmuted in your pocket and don't want to speak. Okay, right. So guys, give us a flash of a mic if you want. David, are you there, my friend?
I was just a question for Nick.
Are you there, mate?
Can you hear me? 1 second.
It's all right. There's only 400 people waiting.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, David. I got you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hi, Nick.
Hey, man.
So I'm all right. So how important is it, well, for people who, because not many people know your silent business partner in the background. How important is it in your case to have a really good team to help you close those deals, and obviously singing from the same hymn sheet? Because obviously not many people know your business partner, although he is on Clubhouse, because obviously, as we know, because you give me a offered me a position in like helping you with the sales side of things when I give you the referrals, which was awfully kind of you. So that's just
so
anybody who's thinking of doing what you do. Obviously, the team is integral, so I just wanted you to share that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think the key thing, from the question that if you're asked beforehand, it comes down to making sure you've got people who understand, or they share firstly in what you're trying to create, and I still say that as the most important thing. But then it's understanding about how people need to play in their lane. So one of the people who's influenced me a lot in the whole scale up journey is Gino Wickman, who wrote the book Traction, and he's also written another fantastic book called Rocket Fuel, and he talks about right people, right seats. And so my business partner Rob Williams, he is effectively, if you study any of Gino's work, he's kind of like the integrator to our relationship. So I'll be out there creating the sort of longer term vision, and I get energy from thinking, in advance. So what does the next, 3 years look like, 5 years, all the way up to 20 years out. So I kind of, I like to sit at that sort of 30,000 foot view, but that's all great unless, it doesn't work unless you've got people who can then take that and turn that vision into something that is tangible and actionable. So I have that relationship with Rob, and he'll what's a nice way to say this? He'll put up with me talking about all these crazy ideas and then say, Nick, that's crap. Like, that's not going to work. But then underneath that, we have, various experts, specialists in areas that are important to our various businesses that are then directed through a more tangible action plan. So I think the headline to your question, David, is, my personal view is do the thing that you love, right? And do the thing that you're good at. And usually those two things are related. And everything else, leverage as best you possibly can to people where that thing that you are leveraging is the thing that they love or are great at. And if you follow that principle all the way through, from leadership all the way down to everyone in your organization, you tend to have something that works with more congruency than, trying to manage people who are, not necessarily in the areas where they want to be. So for me, it's crucial. And because we're talking about scale up, it's crucial in scale up because you've got to build the ecosystem, the machine of your business in that way, in my opinion.
Great answer. Thanks, mate.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Who's that?
Mirela,
yes, go ahead.
Hi, guys. He mentioned Rocket Fuel, Gino Wickman. I also have read the other book of Gina, Traction. And thank you for mentioning that, because I'm studying it. It's at the beginning was like, wow, it was a shock to see how many mistakes I had done in the business. I didn't know. And since I read The Rocket Fuel, I've been intentionally looking for my integrator. And I've been failing. I tried a couple of times. I thought I did. And it's so hard to find that integrator. What is the best way to find the integrator? Because I am also like you, I'm the visionary. And I all the time I'm just looking and I know a lot of people, and I do exactly what you advised, searching in my community, people who I trust, asking for referrals, hiring agencies. But I want an A-star integrator, the same level that I am. And it seems to be so hard. So what would be your advice to find?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Marilla.
It's like the Holy Grail, isn't it?
It is. I tell you why I'm laughing. I'm smiling as she's asking the question, because I've got multiple integrators, right? And everyone always asks what their names are. I never say. But I was talking yesterday with one of them who's just superb. And she was saying, do you think we should start a business which helps people find integrators? I said, yes, we should do that, because everyone asks this question. So firstly to say to you, Marilla, you're in good company. I'm not going to be able to give you the best answer, because it is hard. This is one of the hardest things, because if you think about it, there's different definitions. As much as Gino does a great job of defining what an integrator is and the role, the relationship between visionary and integrator within his book, the integrator that you need does depend a bit on what you're trying to build and the business model. That's why, I said I've got different integrators. So Rob, who's my main business partner, he's focused a lot on building our empire out. So he's focused on the acquisition side. He's great at doing that, putting the structure around that. Jazz, who's my integrator on the education side of our business, she is fantastic at building education programs and products, and linking those things together. But I suppose the core competency between both of them, or a number of competencies, is what I call operational precision, right? So they are looking at almost like, if I'm the architect, they're the builders. They're taking the vision and they're trying to put it down into some form of schematic, right, or some form of blueprint that can then be sort of built into something tangible. So you're looking for that. But in terms of where you find them, I have found all of my integrators through relationships and network. I've been very clear about what the outcomes or results are for what I want them to achieve. So if I'm building a program and I want someone to help do that, I'm very clear on what I want that to be and look like. And then I've just spread the net pretty wide and then had conversations. And I'll be really clear, I've made mistakes as well. I've brought people in, they haven't been the right people. My view on that is you've got to obviously treat that with empathy, but you've got to be very, very clear that you are going to make mistakes on that. But unfortunately, Morella, there is no, what I call silver bullet answer to this. You really have to be clear on what you want that role to do, and then you just have to give people a go, but be prepared to cut that if that's not going to serve you.
One of the key lessons I found of rocket fuel, because I love rocket fuel and traction and EOS and all the other stuff that Gino Whitman's done. But I think the important part is to understand what role you play, because many people in a small business will have to play both roles for quite a considerable amount of time.
Yeah,
true. And until they reach a point where they're able to find that integrator. But I think it's having the self-awareness that you are the visionary. If you're that way inclined and that's your personality set, then it's being able to understand that, isn't it? I think is key, really.
Yeah, and there are some tactical things. Like someone said to me once, go and employ someone from Starbucks or McDonald's, where they've learned the process of putting it. I don't know if that's 100% the right way to do it. For me, it's someone who absolutely loves the detail, loves problem solving, loves building things, but is just really, really operating at that granular level.
Yeah,
that's the starting point. Because anyone who's like, who can do that, you can train a little bit around it, but you've really got to ask those questions to find that person.
See, you look at me, and they everybody here says, "Oh, you love systems and processes," because I talk about it all the time.
Oh, we love systems.
No, but that's because it's been ingrained. It was ingrained with me. So my whole, when I was in the fire brigade, yeah, everything was an aid memoir, we used to call it. You had a book in your pocket, in your tunic, and every instant you turned up to, you'd get that out, and there'd be a flip chart of like a pocket-sized flip chart of an aid memoir of steps that you would have to take so that you didn't, because it was a high pressure environment very quickly. Same with aviation. I love aviation.
I was about to say, you have that in your plane,
and everything is on a flip chart that's available to you there, so that you never miss a step and you never forget it. So that's my whole life from young adult to now has been based on flip charts and aid memoirs and just that approach. So everything I've ever done has been trying to integrate those systems in. But I'm definitely a visionary personality. Like I will come up with the architecture for a system and say, right, this is how the customer journey should be. This is how the process should work. To some extent, I'll design and sort of implement the first part of that. And then within 12 months, I've got to get out of my own way, because I'll be bored and I'll be on to something else. So I've got to get out of the way.
I'm similar to that as well. I'll get into a level of detail on certain things, but then people just tell me to go away because I'll lose patience with it, or I'll get bored. Yeah. Right. So, and the problem with like this sort of role is you need someone who doesn't get bored with it, because it needs that level of, as I said, precision on it. The other area, just to help as well, Marilla, because I've seen some of my clients have success with this, is they have found their integrators through sort of military background and that sort of thing. I know someone recently who hired someone who'd been in the Air Force, but had also worked in the engineering part of the Air Force, which is probably the best mix. And that person is superb at building things and also working with structure.
I've heard that McDonald's statement as well. That's not, you're saying don't go by that statement.
Well, no, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad at all. I know people who have hired sort of admin assistants, and then those admin assistants have ended up being managing directors of their business. Now, to be clear, this is where people, I think, fall down a little bit. The integrator ultimately ends up being not just an operations person. They end up running the business. So they are the operational running, if you treat it from a pure play perspective. So they end up being like the managing director, sometimes the CEO. So if you think about the businesses that I've got at the moment, if we acquire a business, right, the first thing we ask is who's going to be the operational GM, ultimately the managing director. But they're not just running process and structure. They're also managing the people. So you've got to think, what is the integrator doing? It's not just following the McDonald's schematic, right? They also have to be able to lead. So maybe it's someone from McDonald's who knows the processes, but also is the team leader. It's that type of role, because it can't just be, sitting in a box running operations.
Brilliant. So, Morella, did that answer your question?
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Thank you, guys. If it is possible, I have a very, very sensitive question as well.
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm game. You can ask me anything.
So, okay. I know, another complicated thing is that when I hire people, I hire women. My problem is that I teach women all day long how to start a business. And now I'm getting better, but most of the time I end up teaching my employees how to start their own business, and they leave very quick. Have you guys had this problem?
Yeah. Shoot them.
He's not even joking.
Well, I've had that happen, and I've then sort of taken a percentage of the business that they start.
That's another angle.
Do you know what I've said to you before? Sorry, Nick, I'm answering that. We've had these conversations, and you can control what you can control, and forget about the bits that you can't. And I think that's just one thing. If somebody's intent on doing that, I've said in this room before, just have you develop a very thick skin over a number of years. And my mindset is everybody's going to stab you in the back. You're just waiting for the knife to land. And that's it, really. And you would never be disappointed. But you won't.
A lovely world to live in.
No, it's not that. It's if you know that somebody's going to come into your organization and eventually they're going to leave, when they leave, you're never going to be disappointed. Because I lost so much time on dwelling on staff members that went off and set up their own stuff and left and got frustrated and got angry. And actually, do you know what? If somebody's intent on doing that, they're going to do it anyway. There's not a damn thing you can do about it.
If you look at there's a really good book by a guy called Keith Cunningham called The Road Less Stupid, which I encourage people to read, because it's one of those books you can just read a chapter at a time. You don't have to read the whole thing. And he talks about, how do you hire? And he talks about A players and B players and this sort of thing. I think the thing with if you hire people who have got really, really good fundamentals, they've got really good attitude, all that sort of stuff. So A players, you've also got to realize that most of the time they've got ambition.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a little bit like with coaches and mentors. It's a good thing if you outgrow your coach and mentor, right? It means you're leveling up. So in the same way, if someone comes into you and they outgrow the business, right, because their ambition is now bigger and broader, you kind of got to celebrate that. It's hard. I get it. But I think to your point, where it isn't great is if the relationship is bad and someone decides they have to leave and then, try and compete with you or whatever else, that's where it feels a bit bad. But I think, you have to expect people are going to leave, right? And if they leave on the right terms and you've helped them achieve that, then you should be acknowledging that that's great leadership on your part as well.
You can have all of the NDAs, all of the non-compete clauses in a contract. You can have all of that stuff and do a lot of work to get that in place. Actually, a contract's only as good as the ability to enforce it. And if somebody's intent on doing it, they're going to do it, aren't they?
Exactly. I think that the reframing I would do, Morella, for your question is, if that's going to happen, how can I, to my point, how can I celebrate that that's what I'm doing? Because, you could argue that your whole model is about helping people achieve that. If you're doing that, that's going to be good for you longer term. You're helping people get to where they want to get to. That's going to build your brand and reputation. It's going to have a better effect on your business over the time.
Yeah, I would also say I would brand myself as working with them really closely from the word go. So then you're intrinsically linked to the success that person then goes on to have, consciously or subconsciously. I've had a client do it to me recently, on the right path, knew exactly what they were doing. Like, I'm going to follow it. I'm going to follow it. And they were going down the right route. And I was like, I'm going to make sure I will hitch my wagon to that train that's leaving the station. And it absolutely worked. So now when they're like, oh, look what I've created. Everyone's like, oh, you worked with them, didn't you? Oh, you did their website. You did all their branding. I'm like, yeah, I did. But you have to be intentional to do that. And at the beginning, I think. But like I say, it's, outgrowing a coach or a mentor or a business is probably a good sign, isn't it, ultimately? And it's a sign that you're doing the right thing. Because if you're out there pitching that, you're helping people to build businesses and then your staff go and build businesses, then shows that you are true to your word. You're congruent to the message that you put out. You are the message that you preach.
I mean, the thing you can do, again,
or shoot them.
Or shoot them. But you can also design your business model. Like I was, I wasn't being flippant when I said, take a percentage of the business. Design your business model, so that's a natural part of it. So we do this, as I said, the scale up to exit. And when people work with us in different ways, we have a model which builds the relationship and the depth of that relationship, both commercially and kind of how we work with people over time. So the ultimate goal for us is someone sells their business for 8 and 9 figures, right? So if we can get someone to that position, that's the outcome. Now, because usually it takes a bit of time to do that, usually a minimum 12 months, sometimes a bit longer, up to sort of 3 years, there's a point where we do take a percentage or we have a success fee of that outcome. So if I said to you, Paul, okay, we're going to build this up and we're going to sell it for 50 million, right? I'm going to work with you for the next couple of years, right?
This is a pitch, by the way. Don't look too closely into his eyes. This is definitely a pitch.
Paul, I've got Paul already. I can I just put the number there, and the eyes. I can see there was the twinkle. And
15 mil. He was like,
have you noticed he's not looking at me now?
I know.
So we've already got it. I've got a new Labrador at home, right? And it gets very submissive around me, and it doesn't look me in the eye. And I can see this now.
Yeah. Talking of dogs, when Ashley comes back, he's not in the room at the moment. His phone's not here. His nickname's Jack Russell. So
is it? Yeah. I can see the resemblance already. Yeah, it's there.
So there we go.
But the point I'm making here is just make your business model so that if you are, it comes back to like, how do you price for things, right? Price on value, right? If you're helping someone achieve something that's massively important to them and it's life changing, well, make sure that you are pricing your value and contribution to that. So if someone's going off and starting their own business, and that's your model, is to help people go off and start their own businesses, then think about the value that you can then bring to yourself and for them through that process.
Yeah, I love that. Did that answer the question, Marilla? Your sensitive question?
Oh, thank you so much. I will have a peace of mind. For me, it was sensitive because I don't want to be seen like I feel sad when these ladies go, but I do.
No, I get that.
But I will have a peace of mind now. Definitely, it's not only happening to me. I can see it's a common problem, and we have to let it go. But thank you so much. Thank you. Very inspiring.
I had a guy once, and this is really bad. I convinced him. So in architecture, people come. Very quick story. People do their first part of their degree, then they come and get a work placement for a year, 2 years, and they go back and do the final part of their degree, and then they go back. So you have part 1 architects, part 2 architects. Basically, it just depends on where they are in their journey. So we would take on a lot of the people that do the legwork and the drawings would have been part 1 architects who would have just come out of university, and then they're doing their work placement. So we had a guy come in, and he was traveling. So our office was in central London, and he lived in Portsmouth. And he was traveling up from Portsmouth every day.
Every day, wow.
And we were paying not great money for part 1 architects just because of the experience that they were getting for being there. And I realised that he was only a young kid, and I realised that he was doing this journey up from Portsmouth every single day. So I started talking to him and like realising, this guy is completely different. He's wired completely differently to the typical people that were coming in, putting their headphones on, just doing their work and then leaving and not communicating, which was typical in a creative industry. People would come in, stick their big headphones on, work, not say a word to anybody all day, and then leave. And this guy was completely different. So it come to the end of his placement, he was considering, and he was due to go back to university. And I actually convinced him to stay. I just said, you know what? You are a completely differently wired person to an architect. And whilst you might want to go and finish your architecture degree, and you might want to do that, like it is, personally, I feel it's a waste of your time because I'm not degree educated. And I was like, it's a complete waste of your time because you're going to go back, do another 3 years at university, then go and work for an architect's firm. Like you might as well just shortcut all of that and learn from somebody. I was basically selling him the dream, really. So I convinced him not to go back to university, and he became my number 2, really. And a big period of my growth was when he was alongside me. And I didn't know a lot, but I taught him everything that I knew, or felt like I taught him everything that I knew.
Solid week.
Yeah.
And was he your sort of integrator then? In that respect?
But I hadn't read Rocket Fuel at that point. But I guess he was. Yeah. He was. I was away doing a lot of the business, and he would be back in the office. And I sort of formed an executive team, I guess, that was my PA or my EA that I called her, and this guy. And George's name was, and those two would be my closest allies. They would know everything that was going on, and they would go away and implement some of the crazy ideas that were coming out of my head. And then one day he walked in, and he was compensated well. I sorted out the accommodation for him. He was looked after, to say the least, because I didn't want to lose him, and I wanted him to come on this bigger, grander vision with me. And his dad had a business in Portsmouth. They used to make windows and sash windows. And he came in one day and he sat down and he said, "Paul, I'm leaving." And I was like, "Why?" I was like shell shocked. Like somebody had thrown a hand grenade in the office, a hand grenade, and it had gone off in the office. "Why?" And and in my mind, I was like, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to convince you to stay. But there was no money that there was no level of area that I was not prepared to go to like convince George to stay, because I saw him as an integral part of what I was doing. And then he said, my dad's not well and he wants me to take over the family business.
Wow.
So I was like, and he said, I'm only in a position to take over the family business because of what I've learned from you over the last 2 years. He said, I would not feel, and but at this point he was like 22 or something. It wasn't 21, 22. And he said, I'm at a point where I feel like I can do this based on what you've taught me. And I'm torn. I really don't want to leave, but how can I can't say no to my dad. Like, the business is going to get sold or shut if I say no. So of course the conversation that I could not, how could you convince, and I knew I could probably convince him to stay. And at that point I thought, do you know what, back off the conversation, take your foot off the gas and just support him in what he was doing. And occasionally, we still speak to this day. We're still in touch. And he's done a really good job with his dad's business. He's completely transformed what he's doing, turned it around.
So that's the point where that's the point where you say, listen, I'll buy your dad's business. And you can run it.
I actually used his business as a supplier at that point afterwards for various bits. But yeah, sort of relevant to the conversation, I guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But how, in the world where you're sort of like scaling stuff up, by its proper definition, how do you ensure that you're not key man landlocked effectively? So like, for example, I don't know whether it did or not, but whether George going was like a bit of a,
it was, because I hadn't put what I hadn't done then. And I've spoke about it in this room. Now I'm obsessed, if I've got an employee, of getting them to document their job. I hadn't with George. So somebody come in and they was known as the new George. That was their job role. The new George.
I feel sorry for that guy already.
It was like, what did George do? Everybody said I'm the new George. What did George do?
Oh, no.
And I went through a few people that just couldn't get the concept, because I couldn't articulate it, because we were so wired alike each other, me and George. You just got it. If I said, this is what's got to happen, he just went and done the rest.
Right, yeah.
Like, without me having to say,
so it's instinctive.
Do this. Yeah.
Which is great, but terrible at the same time.
I mean, that is the answer. I mean, there's two parts. It depends on the size of the business. You have a contingency of a number two for number two, so to speak. So you build it backwards. So if something does happen, any key man dependent, you have someone who can step into that role. Yeah. But Paul's 100% right. You just document the processes. So, and that can be a laborious thing to do. But if someone does have to leave quickly, or something terrible happens, or whatever it is, then you have a way more quickly to be able to get a replacement to that. I mean, when we look at acquisitions, or we advise on acquisitions, one of the key things, which is a deal breaker, is there someone in the business who can run the business? So back to the whole sort of Kiyosaki quadrant about business owner to investor. I don't want to be the business owner or owner operator. I want to be the owner investor. So there has to be someone in the business who runs it. And to be frank, if there isn't someone in the business, and then I still like it, and I have to go and hire someone, that's just increased the risk quotient of that business incredibly. So more often than not, I'll walk away from it. Such an important part.
Really, yeah. Yeah, what have we got in place for number two? So if Ash goes down, we're just going to bring it. We're going to bring in Ryan Nurse, aren't we? Straight off the bat, Ryan. What about hopefully, because he's always here. Hopefully, Ryan's listening. I hope you're ready. At a moment's notice. Is he in the room? I hope he's in the room.
I thought I saw him there before.
I was just thinking about what happens if something happens with Paul and all the systems.
Used to. Sorry for the language. Oh, fucked. Honestly. You could not even make a coffee if I didn't tell you.
You'll be at the back of Ashley's car,
Nick. Let's not sweeten Nick up just in case.
So we need a tech geek. The back of Ashley's car. What? Just
I don't want to be known as I don't want to be known as the new George or anything like that.
Yeah, you're the new Paul. Shit Paul. Right, what's the speakers? Popcorn starting flashback, because I know. Obviously,
that would be. We're going to do that exercise, because that would be a really interesting conversation. Who's the visionary and who's the integrator out of us three?
I missed the integrator bit. What's the integrator part? I've missed that whole thing.
We'll catch you up.
Oh, God, listen to the recording.
Yeah.
Right, mods and speakers, popcorn styly, flash and white. If you've got a question that you'd love to ask Nick, which is about, scaling up your business, growing your business, the difference between startup and scale up, and the difference between scale up and grow and growing your business. So let's go to Sajal. We will come to you, my friend.
Good morning. So this is a bit of an unconventional question, but Nick, thank you so much for being here this morning, and thank you for having me up, Ashley, Paul, and James. So I guess my question is more from a well-being perspective, because that's where my expertise is. But obviously, when we're on this journey to scaling up and starting businesses, etc., we tend to become really entrenched in our business, that everything else falls to the wayside, and we can end up, getting burnout. And I can see, obviously, you're a very accomplished businessman, and you've probably had to put in a lot of effort and work, etc. So I wanted to basically know, what are the kind of rituals or structures or habits that you've had to or you've had outside of business that has actually helped you create a mindset within your business to help you scale up and ensure that you're kind of keeping a level playing field, if you like, or ensuring that you're creating that harmony between different areas of your life so that you can give everything in your business and not necessarily, like they say, cliche of working hard, but working more smarter in your business. So do you have any tips around that?
Yeah, sure. No, that's a great question, Sajal. And I like the fact that you mentioned the word harmony, because I prefer the word harmony to balance. Because if you go back to the story I shared about an hour ago, when I was sort of full on into the private equity thing and working crazy hours and doing deals and all that, I did burn out, right? And I had, a pseudo breakdown, you could call it, with the teeth incident. So these days I'm super intentional about lots of different things, and I'll kind of share some of those now, which I think give me the focus and the energy to be able to do the different things that I want to do. So the first part is I'm appreciative of the fact that I call it seasons, actually. There are seasons when you have to double down on certain parts. That's why I don't like the word balance. So this idea that I have this balanced, relationships and health and business, and it's all in this kind of equilibrium, I don't believe that's true. For me anyway, there are certain times where I need to double down on a certain area, and really focus on it. Sometimes that's business, sometimes that's more relationships, sometimes that's different things. So there are seasons where, if I think about the way I set goals and intentions, and I do that on a 90-day basis, I review and I take inventory on what's working and what's not against a bigger vision, what I'm trying to create, and my longer term goals, into effectively 90-day action plans, which I review every single Sunday, and I plan my week in advance. So I call it, Sunday planning, or it's called Sunday System for Success, if you want to be cheesy. And then,
Paul, like that, he wrote that down. Hang on, Sunday System for Success on there.
That was for Paul. And I've just got acknowledgement that worked. But this, when I explain this to people, sometimes they go, "Oh God, that sounds really like boring and like whatever." But I find that sometimes having that sort of routine and structure sets you free. It creates greater freedom. So I'll sit there first and go, okay, for this week, what are the important things I want to get done in terms of results and outcomes based on the next 90 days? The things that go in first are anything to do with my health and my fitness. So I train at the gym 4 times a week. I do about 6 sessions of total exercise, including things like basketball on Thursday nights. All of that stuff goes in first, right? So I have that first. Then I have time with my daughters and my wife. That goes in second. Then it's clients that I'm serving goes in third. And then anything more strategic or longer term goes in fourth. Okay. And sometimes that flexes around depending on what a week is looking like. So, this last week we've helped someone sell their business. So some of that has had to be prioritized because we're right at the end of that. But then I'll make sure the following week that I've gone back and had a little bit more harmony, to use that word again, around things. So that's the first thing I'll share. Second thing is, I'm not one of these people who's like massive on a really full-on morning routine and I get up at 4 a.m. and all this, like these guys here. Today was the earliest I've got up in a long time, I tell you, because I like to wake up without an alarm, right? So I don't do any what I would call work-related stuff usually before midday. right? Because I do a lot of stuff in the US. So I tend to sort of do stuff from about midday until about sort of 7 o'clock at night if I'm doing anything work related. And anything out of that is time for myself or my family. So I don't have this routine where I have to get up and meditate for like 5 hours and then, do my run. I totally get why people do that. But I found that when I had too much structure in that way, it was causing more overwhelm. So these days I'm more intuitive and I sort of do what I feel like doing, but I'm still working to a structure in my diary. So there's a couple of things I think there, Sejal, that how I do it. But I'll sort of just finish by saying, I'm a big believer that what works for some person isn't what's going to work for another person. And so just reading a book and seeing someone's routine and saying that's what I'm going to do, you've just got to experiment and try it out and judge it by your results and judge it by your energy and how happy you are, by doing different things.
Awesome stuff. Does that answer the question, Sejal? Harmony, I like that.
I've tried all sorts of routines.
Thank you.
Well, what do you stick to? Just like wake up, be a miserable sod, go to bed. Is that normal?
No, seriously, Clubhouse has massively changed my routine because I'm the man behind the buttons and I have to be there to play the music. Otherwise,
his ego what's going on today, isn't he? He's flexing.
If I'm not sat behind my desk in my office at 6:30 a.m. every single morning, I can't be like Ashley, turn up 3 minutes late. Because what would happen? The music wouldn't play. So no, Clubhouse has seriously changed my routine. See it from like when we realised what worked out, what we was doing with Breakfast for Winners. Since then, it's like I'll get up, go down, make a coffee. I know Nick's a fan of bulletproof coffee. Yeah. I'm the same. So I do a bulletproof coffee, sit down, and then the first thing I do, usually the first time I've spoken in the morning is good morning, welcome to Breakfast for Winners, or pressing the button to play the music. Like that is my morning routine. I've tried meditating, but prior to Clubhouse, meditating, going out, doing morning cardio, doing a morning swim, doing all sorts of stuff. And
what kind of meditation was you listening to?
I was using one of the apps that you put in your ears and sit there and
I do meditate every day. I just don't do it like, at first. I mean, I do transcendental meditation, right? Which is just a different way of doing it. I've tried all sorts of stuff, but it has helped. I had to start to do something after the private equity thing because my head was just all over the place. I needed to get some clarity and slow things down. But I don't. One thing I find hasn't worked for me is that, okay, it's 6:20. Now I've got to do meditation. Oh no, it's 6:22. I've missed my 2 minutes of, oh God, right? That doesn't work. So for me, it's like, okay, when do it's more intuitive now. So when do I feel like I want to do something and I have enough white space in my diary around the things I mentioned beforehand that allows me not to have to rush.
Yeah. You've got that level of self-awareness around being intuitive now, I guess. That's
it was a learning. And I also had to break the structure because again, if you're in that world, the private equity world, everything is pretty relentless a lot of the time. And
it's almost like a bullshit badge of honor, isn't it? How hard you're working.
I'll tell you, one of the things that happened, right? I have to give you this story quickly, is I remember we were doing a deal and I got thrown against a wall, one of those plasterboard walls, and literally went through the wall, like not all the way through. But
I thought you meant like a metaphorical wall.
No. There was like, punch ups and pushing and all sorts of crazy stuff that goes on. Yeah. So the reason I share that story is because it was so pent up, like levels of kind of, I'm going to say, aggression and stress when you're trying to get these deals done. For whatever reason, I look back now and I kind of laugh about it going, God, really? Was I like that? So these days, having more flexibility feels more like freedom to me. Yeah, because it wasn't like that before.
I found when I was looking for morning routines, it was because I was getting stressed out with something and I was trying to look for a routine and ignoring the problem of what's actually causing the stress.
Yeah.
So for most of us as business owners, there's a problem in the business you need to fix that you might not even be aware of.
Yeah.
You're stressed out. You're looking for an answer, thinking that, the morning routine is going to give you the answer and be the holy grail to working out the problem. But actually,
you weren't dealing with the root cause.
You deal with the problem.
I've heard it expressed as a form of procrastination.
Yeah.
When you think about it. And it's true. I think it's like when people say, I'm going to try and find an app to help with productivity. And they spend all the time trying to find the app, right? Like, is it Evernote? Is it, whatever it is, Todoist? And then quite frankly, just
to do.
Yeah, how many people have spent time building Asana, Trello, ClickUp, making it look really pretty, but just avoiding the tasks that are on the task list?
No, I've been there.
We've all been there. Right, we are unfortunately hurtling towards the 9 o'clock hours. We better try and give a few more people the opportunity to come on stage and to ask Nick a question, I reckon. So mods and speakers, popcorn style, if you've got a question you'd love to put to Nick, flash your mics and we will come to you. Let's just scroll down the panel. We are talking Dale. Go on, Dale. What's your question, my friend? You can't scale yourself, though, Dale. This is the challenge when you are such an integral part of the business with your energy, your tenacity, your wisdom, and your damn good looks, Dale. But go on, ask your question anyway. I think it'll be irrelevant, but go for it.
I'll give him a break. Come on.
Hashtag bromance. Me and Dale have got a bromance going on. It's fine.
We certainly have. Yeah, that was my question, actually. How do I scale up me in a roundabout way? Actually, not my vivid good looks. Jeez, man, I'm getting big head. But how would be the best? By the way, Nick, legendary conversation. I'd say 95% of what you shared went completely over my head.
That's all right. Do you know what? I get that feedback all the time. I get that. Yeah. It's a way of sounding smart, by the way, by just like baffling people with bullshit. Right?
Yeah, cheers, mate. I don't know if any of it made sense, but hence why you've got a podcast and an app to download. Little plug just there. I'll review it. Yeah, so I'm thinking, for me, what would you say would be the best way, just like three little cheeky steps to scale up me, what I do as a coach? Let's just call me a coach. At the moment, I'm coaching other people to do what I do, and they go under my umbrella, and I kind of I'm in the process of going to give them clients because I'm premium, by the way.
Yes, of course.
So, yeah, but other people may not be able to. I want to make it more cost effective for everybody. So I'm employing other people, not employing, but they're going to go under my umbrella.
Okay.
To do that. And I don't know if that's the right thing to do, Nick. Really? Cheers, buddy.
Yeah, I can give you some thoughts on it. I'll just give you a couple of different ideas and more tactical things, I think, Dale, just from some of my experience of this, because I've looked at this question a few times. The problem with anyone who's doing coaching consultancy is everyone wants you, right? So there's a bit that, like, when they think they're going to have you and they can't have you because you're, trying to increase your prices and all that sort of stuff, then it's that sort of what I call damp squid moment, right? The letdown. So
that was one of Ashley's early nicknames, actually, wasn't it? Damp squid.
Damp squid. There we go. We'll stay on track. So one of the things I'll give you here is, like, there's two ways of differentiating anything, right? You can differentiate by the result, or you can differentiate by the method. And if everyone is offering the same result, so let's say someone comes to you and they want business growth, for example, something like that, then, the only way that you can stand out and step up or any of those things is to make your methodology something which is unique and different, and then is proprietary, which is also going to create value. So I think from what I heard you say, the idea that you are bringing other people in to deliver what you are about, in terms of what you stand for, then that's what I would underline as your methodology. So the way to do it is you first start out with obviously the who, what statement. So who are you helping and what is the outcome? And then you want to look at something that Russell Brunson talks about, which is called the opportunity switch. So people don't buy improvement, they buy change, they buy a transformation. And then you create methodology around the transformation, and you build, similar to what I've done, you build the business brand around that, and then your platform, you being the person who's driving to that, you separate slightly. So to finish off, a couple of things I did is, as I said, I created SUIB to be more focused on strategic scale. So we talk more about what we call scale to sale. We talk about acquisitions. So the opportunity switch in our business is, you can try and grow your business one customer at a time. You can, write crappy proposals and do cringy sales calls if you want to, but why not double your business overnight by buying your competitor? So the opportunity switch is that. Okay. Now, in terms of my personal brands, I then said, I'm going to go out there and get on as many podcasts as I possibly can. I did 80 interviews last year and I invested in that. And then I started to associate in various geographies and markets where I wanted to create salience. So I focused on the US for various reasons. And then I invested in getting people to help me get on the biggest stages I could. And that's still happening. So that I could tell the story to drive people back to the ecosystem. But I created that separation between myself and the business. So that's what I would look at doing. Create your coaching business as being something that's more about the methodology. And then you can still be the person in front of that, but it's not associated with you, Dale, as being the person who has to do delivery. I don't do any delivery anymore. I might do some group coaching work, but I've got people who run those programs. I don't do any one-to-one really, unless it's high level stuff, and that's more advisory than any time of coaching, mentoring. But I did start off just doing coaching, but I managed to change the model from those things. So hopefully that helps.
That Dow was worth thousands. Let me just tell you that there is not a mastermind that you could pay for to get that knowledge and wisdom. So that was were thousands to you, my friend. I hope you took notes. And actually, do you know what? On that point, because we haven't mentioned it yet. Have we told you we've got an app? I'm just gonna, because that is exactly why we've developed the app, because when stuff's said in this room, it's often lost and gone. So we in 2 minutes time at 9 o'clock in our world, a team of people start chopping up the audio, picking out all of the best bits, of which that will be one of them, and then it goes back into the app, and the app launches next week, a week today. You'll be able to download it.
I see Spencer is flashing there. My friend Spencer has joined the stage.
The app will be, you can download the app from the App Store next Friday. So yeah, go and if you haven't already checked the app out, you can go to my bio, Ashley or James's bio, our Instagram bio, that is, click on the link, and you'll be able to go through to a page to pre-register to be one of the first to download it, because there's loads of cool benefits and bonuses for the first 250 people that actually download the app. So yeah, that was an example of why we've created the app. Sorry,
yeah, that was the exact reason.
Oh no, I was just acknowledging my friend Spencer flashing away there. That's all right, and they just joined. Sorry,
he's got a podcast. He's changed his profile picture, and everyone's got a podcast. Have I mentioned got a podcast? I just I'm joking. I'm not joking. I didn't know
Spencer's there.
Podcast. There he is.
Should we take one more?
Spencer, go on.
Just a quickie. I've done some work with Nick recently, and I am mega impressed with what he does. And whilst it's easy for people to blow their own trumpet, I've actually had a chance to work with him, and he's exceptional at what he does. So I just wanted to put that in there.
Oh, thank you, mate. I appreciate that.
God, that could have gone one or two ways, couldn't it? I've done some work with Nick. I thought, oh God, fingers crossed.
Nothing like a live testimonial.
Yeah. Spencer, you're at EMC this year, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll be speaking at EMC this year. Yeah,
fantastic. We can get you on Breakfast for Winners live.
Yeah, I'm coming down to have lunch with you fellas. It'd be good.
Yeah, we should do an interview with Spencer. Just putting it out. I mean, we could organise this off air, couldn't we? But why not do it?
He's another man that knows a thing or two.
He does.
I've heard good things about Spencer.
Oh, that's nice to see. There's 3 people in the world that have heard good things about me. That's enough.
There you go. That'll do.
Well, it starts somewhere, and
I'm on it quick to make it 4.
Oh, you're on holiday. Go back to your palace in the sun, Spencer.
I've loved watching Spencer's Instagram of his mobile office. It's been brilliant.
It's awesome. Not to mention he's sponsored by Adidas. Honestly,
why does everyone say that? Everyone says that.
I've not seen this. I'll just go hunt him down.
You've got to look at your Instagram as opposed to having your VA do it, and then the fun of morning chat show live. There we are.
There you go. Sponsored by Adidas.
We're 1 minute late, but that's the story of Ashley's life. So we take one more.
Yeah, why not? We might as well run over a bit more, might we? So, mods and speakers, popcorn style, flash your mic. This is going to be the final killer question. So, only come up on stage to ask a question if you have got something killer. All killer, no filler, please. So I'm just going down. I can't help the cheesy old radio analogies. Oh, that's old school, that isn't it? David's flashing. We'll end with David. We'll end with a bit of magic. Make it a magical ending, David. Go on.
I was going to say, go on, David, far away.
No, go on, mate.
No, it was irrelevant to the last question. So have the question and we'll talk about it after.
Okay, cool. So my question is to Nick, because obviously I work with you and your team, Nick, and I know that we've had some people come through who think that they're ready to exit their business, and in the politest way possible, you tell them that they're not. So what would be the key things that you'd give to somebody who, before they're even thinking about approaching anybody to either buy or get investment in the business, what are the key main things that they need to have in order for somebody like yourself to go, do you know what? Yeah, it's worth my time. So they're not wasting their time, but also they're not wasting your time. That's my...
Yeah, cool. No, thank you, David. Yeah, and it's been great sort of getting to know you since the beginning of the app as well. So that's like, so what I'll say on this is people, and this kind of comes to the crux, I think. So it's a great question to finish with. People don't plan their exit with enough intention or time around it. And so sometimes people will come and say, oh, I want to sell my business. I want to sell it quickly, right? Well, you're starting to get into the world of a distressed sale, right? Because, you have to kind of put some things in place to maximize the value and also to create the right level of interest. And I can answer this in a long way, but I'm conscious of time. Remember, when you sell a business, quite often, you're not just leaving the business straight away. quite often, someone who buys the business expects you to stick around for a period of time. Sometimes that could be a matter of months. Sometimes it can be a matter of years. So you want to be really, really clear about, how you want that to all work. So, what sort of exit is it going to look like? How am I going to maximize the value of the business? What needs to happen in the time frame that you have to be able to do that. That's why I say, you should be exit planning at least 12 months up to 36 months beforehand. So when people come my way and they say, oh, Nick, I want to sell my business, I'll say, okay, listen, I'm not a broker. I'm not here to go out and just pitch your business for nothing. I'm here to create value so that you can get a life-changing exit. So quite frankly, if you want to sell the business in 3 months, I'm not the person to speak to, right? I might look to buy your business because I'll then optimize it and scale it up, but I'm not going to help you sell it. You need to have a longer window. So that's the first piece. And the second piece, I think, is what I'd call unrealistic expectations. So I have a lot of people come to me and they say, oh, this business is going to be a unicorn. And I'm like, okay, right. And, it's not. It's, like a shared service center in Ilford. And Paul hasn't said that, by the way. And a unicorn is like, a business that is valued at $1 billion just by definition. And unrealistic expectations is, I say this, what is your number? Okay. What is your life-changing number? Right? What's the thing that's going to make you never have to think about working ever again? Right? What's your financial freedom number? And people who appreciate that even getting to that number is still bloody awesome, right? It gives you so much choice and flexibility. They're the ones that I like to work with because we can then say, okay, right, the business is valued at this today. That's your life-changing number. Here is now the plan that we need to orchestrate and put together to get to that number. It's going to take about this time. Now, it could happen more quickly because we're going to go and speak to partners and suppliers. We're going to build your network and we're going to orchestrate the whole damn thing. So when someone turns up one day and says, hey, is your business for sale? It's not, oh, I don't know. It's, yes, it absolutely is because you've done the work. So they're the reasons, David, that I sometimes say no to people because they have to go away and at least answer some questions themselves first before it's going to be worth their time, the investment they're going to make in helping, getting us to help them and also our time to do that.
There you go. Question answered. Mic dropped at the end. I think that was a strong way to end a strong show.
What a morning.
What a morning indeed. Mods and speakers, Popcorn Stylie. If you've enjoyed this morning's show, flash your microphone. Do us a favour. Let's see how many people have enjoyed the show. As in the words of Ashley Shipman, it's lit up like a Christmas tree.
I just want to say one more thing before we wrap up. Is it me? Yeah, it's me. Schoolboy.
I thought it was me for a second. I'm going to get the croissant thrown at my head in a minute, but that's all right.
Yeah,
First world problems.
Thank you, Nick, for your time today. Thank you for being out of the studio. Just stuff under the Winners Club.
He's doing some house rules. He's got very official, isn't he? Go on. No, you
no, but he said that and he's looking at us like we should take over now and carry on speaking.
Now far away, guys. The sniper. Beiju. The sniper. Is he there?
Yes, I'm here.
He's going to be hosting a room from Monday.
Weekly on a Monday within the Winners Club.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, really.
What's it called, Beiju?
Mindset made simple. So we're going to talk about all things mindset, start the week off really well. So you've got a great start to the week. We're going to have different themes this week. Monday, we're just going to talk about what mindset means to you, get some shares, get some insights. And then each week, we're going to have a different theme to delve deeper into the complexities of mindset, how you can make it work for you, identity, growth mindset, evolve mindset, all different bits and pieces. And yeah, it's going to be shares, questions, it's going to be great. 4:00 every Monday in the Winners Club. Looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
4 p.m. Monday. The sniper, everybody. Let's give him a round of applause. He's going to be there Monday, 4 p.m. That's enough of that. Otherwise, wasn't it? That's enough of that.
And also, because we haven't mentioned it, the official Winners Club event that we're doing with EMC, Entrepreneurs Marketing Conference.
Yes.
If you've loved the value today, there's going to be 3 days of value like that given at EMC. So definitely go through and click on our bio. Go through to the link as well as the app button. There's a button that says EMC. If you click on that, you can go to the landing page, find out all about it. There's a Winners Club lounge that's there.
That lounge is mega, by
I hope you all turn up because otherwise there's going to be the 3 of us with a small studio in the corner of the room.
Well, the thing is, there's been a lot of people from the Winners Club purchased. So
So you could basically, you get a discount. You get a 20% discount on your tickets if you use the code Winners Club. But you have to do that via the checkout page that's on that link. So go through to the links in our bio, purchase your EMC tickets, or DM any one of us, me, Ashley, or James, via back channel, Instagram, however you want. Just put EMC and we'll send you the link. A couple of people have done that and we'll send you the link. But that's going to be a great 3 days. Breakfast with Winners is going to be live from the Winners Club Lounge every single day. We're going to be bringing you other content from the event via into Clubhouse as well.
We're in talks. A Stephen Bartlett interview.
Oh,
Stephen Bartlett interview.
That'll be fun.
Stephen Bartlett is the headline speaker, by the way. He's a headline speaker.
Well,
by the way.
we're now the headline speakers. Stephen Bartlett's our warm-up act, but yeah,
you're speaking twice. Talk about hogging the microphone. Talk about hogging the microphone.
That is James to a T, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
I think it's called. Isn't that called the fluffer? Isn't it the fluffer who does the
that's me. Yeah. Stephen Bartlett's our fluffer, or we're fluffing him. I don't know. Someone's fluffing someone.
Okay, got it.
And we're trying to work out how Larry we can make the Winners Club Lounge, unicorns, or
Oh, that sounds good.
wax
there you
models,
go.
all sorts.
Susan Stocker was only 50-50, where she's coming or not. She's heard unicorn. She's there now, isn't she? That's it. Done deal. Sold.
Matt, can we get live? You want to get live like cardboard images of all three of you, so we can stand by you and take photos while you're doing them.
Oh, we should do that, or shouldn't we? You caption competitions.
Ashley's ego would blow up if we done that.
Can you imagine that?
Can you make me a bit taller?
That cardboard cutout definitely gets nicked on the Saturday night drunkenly, doesn't it? It gets put around Brighton for some photos.
What are the American caravans? You know, the stainless steel caravans?
Streamliners.
Can we get, Matt, could we get a streamliner into the room somehow?
I can see what I can do, mate, for sure.
But Airstream, that could be the studio.
That's going to be great fun, isn't it? I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. So make sure you click onto Ashley, Paul, or James, or the Winners Club bio, and you can find out all the information there on our little landing page about apps and events and all kinds of cool stuff.
Sorry, only because I never put it in the group. Matt very kindly went and took a video because we couldn't make it. So he took a nice video of where the Winners Club Lounge was, and then threw in the problem that the stage is about 15 miles away from where the room is. I was like, oh yeah, Paul, you can overcome that.
I love the fact that we didn't make it this morning. We're going down there next time, and it was just like we was like, oh, so we're going to get down there. We're going to drive down there. Yeah, Paul's like, don't worry, we'll take the plane. It's 2 miles away. We're
gonna fly in to EMC like legends. I'm gonna turn up. With
there is a risk there, isn't there? The plane comes down. Who's going to replace you guys?
Yeah, we can't all travel together. That's right. We're going to go in 2 separate planes.
You have to do 2 separate planes.
No, but actually, because we now said that Ryan Nurse, who is going to be the replacement for Ashley, by the way, he's been in back show. He's like, I'm there for it. So if anything happens to Ash, Ryan has said he's categorically ready to take over at a moment's notice.
Right, so we've got Nick in saying happens to Paul.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Oh, yeah, it's
all about James. What happens with James?
Definitely an improvement.
Don't worry.
Nick's definitely an improvement on me.
Yeah, so Nick can take over from you, better. Ryan can take over from you, but better.
Yeah.
And just get in any old gobshite. It cuts me deep. I hope, is Alex in the room? No, he's out paddleboarding. Yeah, okay. He can't. Don't talk about man who's not here to fight his own corner. Who could take a? Oh, Beju could do it, couldn't he?
What's that?
He loves it. He loves.
Could you be the new Ashley Shipman if Ashley goes down with the plane?
Oh, I'm there, mate. I'm there all day long, whatever.
No one's even sad that Ashley's gone, are they? Everyone's already just like his body's not even cold, and they're already.
Budge up.
Long live the king. The king is dead. Long live the king.
We'll end in a minute.
Yeah, I love this.
I took some pals of mine. We went to these Goodwood Festival of Speed.
Yeah, you love it. Yeah.
So there's an aerodrome at Goodwood you can fly in. So we do it every year and fly into Goodwood. And I took a group of pals with me this time a couple of weeks ago, and one of their wives marched them before the flight, like before we were flying there, marched them off to the solicitors to sort the will out.
You're joking.
Literally, he told me the story as we landed at Goodwood. He's like, do you know what I was doing yesterday? So he was like, I was signing my will. Said my wife made me go and
my wife was.
It does make sense. In fairness, it does make sense.
Haley was the same. She's like, you are going to be sensible, aren't you?
You headbutted the wing getting in.
Yeah, I didn't knock myself out getting into the thing.
What a lot of people don't actually realise is the pilot of the plane wants to come home.
Yeah.
Like, I think they think that you're going to go up there and do all sorts of silly aerobatics and stuff.
I'm going to say it again, but Paul was practicing emergency landing when I first went in the plane with him. I'm like, yeah, I weren't really fussed on how to do an emergency landing, but he said, right, so I'm going to put the engine in idle. This is what happens if the engine...
He had to read the joystick somewhere, doesn't it? So you can start with the Cessna and then you can get to the global.
I'll show you the Vision. It's actually funny enough. It's called the Vision Jet.
Oh, you've got one?
Oh no! It's like 1.2 million quid.
No, I mean you've got a picture of it somewhere.
I'll Google it afterwards.
One of my clients did this the other day, though.
The Winners Club jet.
He had, we were doing this thing about, why do you want to create this business? And he said, I want to buy a boat. And he brought a picture of this boat, right? And it was the most pathetic boat you've ever seen. I said to him, I said, mate, you've got no chance of selling your business for life-changing money because your boat is shit. So there is something in that, you've got to have the vision somewhere.
A big enough vision. I love that. What a great way to end a great room. I hope you guys have enjoyed it listening. We are probably going to, in fact, you know what? This conversation has been mega. We will utilize this as part of a podcast next week because I think there's been so much value. But as of next week, the only way you'll be able to get hold of these sorts of conversations is going to be via the app, which we're launching next Friday. This time next week, we'll have launched it. It'll be out there in the ether.
What's going on Thursday night?
For those of you that register and pre-register, you can come and join the virtual launch party of the app, which is next Thursday, 6 p.m. So in order to do that, go and pre-register for the app. You'll find out all of the information. You can join us on the launch party where we will be walking you through the app, showing you all of the features, telling you about all the good, cool stuff, and just having a good old chat with you.
So if you haven't confirmed...
Did I sell that well enough?
No, a good old chat with you.
Yeah, so if you haven't confirmed the email yet, check your spam. Yeah. Go for your email, sign up, and I
think there's over 150 people registered for that Zoom.
Is the email from what Winners Club, Paul, Ashley? Where's it from?
It comes from the Winners Club. I think it comes from info at thewinnersclub.club.
That's why it might hit your spam. So go check your spam, guys, and sign up for the launch.
There you go.
Nick, it's been fantastic. I was genuinely excited when I found out you was coming in yesterday because I didn't know.
I didn't know. No, I sent the images in the chat yesterday. And he actually said,
I never respond to stuff like that.
So I was a secret guest. Just no, we were speaking last Saturday, and you're like, we haven't got anyone for Friday. Can you come on? I said, yeah, I'm used to being asked like that. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not fussy. I'll go anywhere.
No, Ashley's the worst asker of guests of all time. We're struggling for Friday. You're free.
We've got a WhatsApp. We've got a WhatsApp like image where we share the social assets.
Matt keeps wanting to say something. I don't know what he wants.
And
to say.
he put your social picture, and I was like, oh, cool. And Nick's a good guest. General practitioner of what he speaks about.
There you go.
Matt, did you want to say something?
No, I just said I know exactly how you feel, Nick. Don't worry, mate.
No, I know. I thought we'd have to go and have you. We can cry on each other's shoulders when I come down to your event, mate.
At least you had more notice. We literally phoned Matty Wilson the night before on Thursday, like, mate, we're absolutely shot to bits. What are you doing tomorrow? You only live down the road in Gravesend. Can you come up the A2 for us for a bit? Not a nice way to be asked, but there you go. Anyway, tactical, value. Go on.
Ashley put in that WhatsApp group. Yeah, we're getting them on for an interview. I was like, who? That's all he put in the group yesterday. You put something like, there's people we're going to get on for an interview, but you didn't put their names.
Oh yeah, because there's a big list in my office, and I was going food shopping at the time, and I thought,
should I get them on next week? It's like, who? Question mark.
It's some guests to come through, and I'm speaking to people, and that we've actually got some really good guests coming lined up as well. Which
I like the fact we're becoming so transparent with how we run this business that we're running it on air right now, rather than having this conversation.
The message is actually keep your phone on at about 8 o'clock on a Thursday because you're likely to get a call from Ashley.
Yeah,
saying, "Are you free tomorrow morning?"
So Ryan, if you're listening, if you're thinking, "Why am I going to get invited down one Thursday night, mate?" That call's going to come through. So keep your phone near you.
Guys, trying to look for that email. Is it info@thewinnersclub.com?
info@thewinnersclub.club.
Right.
And if you haven't got it, one of Paul's systems has failed, and he's going to be furious. I can't believe another system has failed. You've had a couple of.
I love the gritty realness of this business.
Paul's had a couple of system failures this week, haven't you? And you don't like the systems this week, do you? Anyway, we'll leave that there.
Info@thewinnersclub.club.
Yeah, do you want me to spell it for you phonetically?
I can't find it in my spam, and I can't find it in my email.
Have you registered for the app, Beijing? Because if not, that might be the challenge.
Basically, Paul's getting red here. He's like, the system doesn't compute things.
The system only works here. Idiots can know how to use it.
You're going to get don't worry, the auto email responder bit is going to send you another reminder. So if you've registered for the app, you'll get another reminder come through.
He's got a system on a system for a system of a system. Good old Paul Apple Grumble. Anyway, cheers for ears as always, guys. Thank you for being here. I hope you've enjoyed this morning. We will see you back again tomorrow morning. There is no coaching room with Lucienne today at 4 o'clock because she is on her hollybobs. I bet that's killing her, innit? I bet she gets to 4 o'clock, she'll be like, I want to do it.
Thank you very much, guys. I've had a great time. So thank you. Appreciate it.
No, thank you for coming in. We really appreciate it. And more tactical, actionable value coming next week. Make sure you click onto the link in our bios to find out more information. And we'll be back tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock-ish in the morning, because we have a little 30-minute line, don't we, on a Saturday? Lord Shipman allows you a line on a Saturday. So we'll be back for Breakfast with Winners tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Have a fantastic day.
The email coming from Paul, not the Winners Club.
Okay, the email is coming from Paul. Like, he's absolutely furious. He's like, the systems have failed me. You'll get an email. Check something somewhere at some time. Have a good day, everybody. Happy Friday. Ta-da.
Cheers for your ears.
Oh, you haven't said the words.
Let's rock and roll.
Oh, thank God. Oh.